All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the regular meeting of the School Committee of the Town of Foxborough, today, October 20th, 2014. Tonight's agenda begins with visitors, followed by approval of minutes, and then a teaching and learning highlight, a new program, the Foxborough High School iSchool Advocates Program, which we talked a little bit about at our last meeting. We then have an update on high school athletics with some special guests. Nice to see you back. We have a approval request of some overnight travel for the Foxborough High School senior class trip. We'll then get into, I'm sure, a lengthy discussion on the 2014 MCAS results overview. Joe was kind enough at our last meeting to let us know that those results were out. Dr. Berdos quickly assembled a review. As a result, we're ready to go. We will have a preliminary discussion on a new topic, which is the prospect of a joint town-school maintenance oversight program. We have acceptance of a donation or two. We have the Bi-County Collaborative Quarterly Update, the October 1st enrollment update, and then other matters. And I know we have a few things there, and I know I have a couple tonight. So let's start with any visitors who'd like to be recognized. Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes from September 29th.
I did not see any corrections or additions,
Same here.
so I'd like to recommend that we pass this.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Teaching and learning highlights, Mrs. Spinelli.
Yes, so what we're presenting to you tonight is, Bill, can you just get the, ready for the video? All right. So, as a little introduction before you see the video, the iSchool Advocate Program is a student leadership program that was founded and developed by a company called iSchool Initiative, that was founded actually by a young man right out of college several years ago, and he's still a young man. And what their mission really is to develop a couple of things to help schools move technology forward in ways that match the way students learn today. And they do a whole bunch of things. They will audit your school system if you need that. They will do professional development and a few other things. But of their 4 or 5 programs that they offer, the one that I was really interested in is the iSchool Advocate Program, which really empowers student leaders in the building to help us move our initiatives forward in technology and also to develop their own personal leadership skills. So we know there's several instances at the high school, many, that offer students leadership development. It could be in athletics, it could be in the music program, it could be through any of our extracurricular clubs, it could be through student government, it could be by sitting here at this table. Melissa, happy to see you have your name tag. And Mikkel, it will be along, she's at the symphony event.
Did you take a selfie with the name tag yet? Okay.
We might have to do that. So there are so many leadership opportunities already at the high school, and this is another one that is a little bit innovative and that we think will really bring a different opportunity to students that some students might get really excited about. So this is something that Mrs. Myers-Packle and I have been working on, and so we'll let you see the video a little bit, and then we'll discuss it afterwards, and we can add some more information to your questions to fully flesh that out. So this is the video that students saw to see if they would have interest in applying to be an iSchool advocate. So our expectation is that we'll have about 20 students that will participate in this program. We'd be happy with 15, we'd be happier with 20, and that's about the size of the group that we're looking for. So students apply online, and this is the introductory video that you'll see me speaking to the students before and after, and then in between is the actual video from the iSchool Advocate folks. And Travis Allen is the founder of that company, and you will see Travis on this video along with Arvin Ross, who will also be coming to Foxborough to train our student leaders. So if you want to take a minute to see the overview, here we go. Do I have to see it? Here we go. Okay, good. Hello, Foxborough High School students. I want to talk to you about a new student initiative this year at Foxborough High School called iSchool Advocates. This program is part of a company called the iSchool Initiative, which was founded by a visionary young man named Travis Allen. Travis is a truly influential young leader in American classrooms,
in terms of digital learning for students these days. I personally met Travis almost 2 years ago at a technology conference, and I had the opportunity to see him again, speak to him again recently. I've personally been quite inspired by his vision for student technology use in American high schools and for the role that students play in moving technology forward in their schools. You will now watch a short video that explains the iSchool Advocate Program so that you can learn a little bit more about it, and then I'll be back to talk to you some more about the program. Enjoy the video.
Right. Because if I show these tablets to most students when they use the computer,
There's a Windows 7 computer.
I want to ultimately become an audio engineer. I am passionate about the school system. I believe that what happens in schools dictates the success of a society.
My biggest passion is helping others. My second passion, oddly enough, is culinary. I love cooking. I love that kind of stuff.
My planned major for college is computer software engineering. Today we learned the steps involved in making a movement, making a change. And I feel like with that information, I can better myself in my major.
At first, I was skeptical about iPads in classrooms. I was skeptical about the whole idea. But after listening to Travis, I am totally behind it.
What I thought when I came in here, I was like, cool, we're going to learn about iPads, we're going to learn about how to use them in the classroom, and that's it. When I stepped in, he started talking, I was like, that's not what it is. It's so much more.
The main focus of the iSchool Advocate Program is to empower our young learners to become better communicators, to develop leadership skills, to develop teamwork skills, and last, to develop technology skills, and how they can really blend all of those to become leaders today in their community. Another key purpose of this iSchool Advocate Program was to allow a group of students to be leaders in the technology deployment that they're experiencing at Anderson One. You figure out how to do it, you figure out how to be creative.
You always hear about these people like Travis finding an opportunity and actually taking it. Unfortunately, you don't hear about that a lot with 17-year-olds and 16-year-olds because we feel like we can't do it. What Travis is doing with teaching us where to start, we're better prepared to make a change like he's doing.
When we worked with the students at Anderson One, we challenged them with one task: create a project to change the world.
Everybody experiences flashes in regular, ordinary, creative moments throughout the day. I don't care who you are. Have students kind of brainstorm about what areas they're excited about and what areas they're passionate about. And then we kind of have them find other people within the group that have the same passions and the same interests.
We've got one group that wants to tackle waste management here in Anderson One. Another group of individuals who are setting out to want to support teachers in their professional development to use technology effectively as Anderson One embarks upon a one-to-one initiative.
We just have to tackle one of the biggest problems, and that would be student interaction in the classroom.
It's a really exciting and energy-filled environment when teachers can look up and say, I taught that student 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and now look at the student and they're changing the world.
I thought the group of students did an excellent job. I actually visually saw and felt their excitement and their enthusiasm for this program. It was a beautiful thing to see many teachers in that presentation recognize the students actually have an ability to teach us and to share with us their passion for technology, their passion for learning.
This is one of the greatest benefits so far of our technology initiative, to create these student leaders.
This has been such an amazing experience. I've always wanted to be involved with something big, and not only is this big, but I feel like it's going to only get bigger from here.
I've never seen a group of young people so passionate to change the world, so passionate to follow their dreams and understand that the biggest insult you can give a young person is to tell them that they're the leaders of tomorrow. Because of technology, they have the power to change the world at any age. And it's just been such an honor to work with your students here at Anderson One.
Foxborough High School students, I'd like to share our plans for our school when it comes to iSchool advocates. So, are you interested in becoming an iSchool advocate? We hope to have 15 students complete the training here, right here at Foxborough High School at the end of October, on October 27th, 28th, and 29th. And now for the really exciting news. Travis Allen himself is coming to do the training. And the other person you saw in the video, Arvin Ross, he's coming as well. So, have I piqued your interest yet? Mrs. Myers-Packla and I will hold an information session after school in the next few days so that you can learn a little bit more about the iSchool Advocate program. The program is open to all students, and more information will also be available in the main office at the high school, and including information on how do you apply to become an iSchool advocate. So thanks for listening, and I look forward to meeting our future FHS iSchool advocates soon.
I don't know if that was Lisa Hughes from WBZ or Maria Stefanos from Foxborough.
Yeah, I'm
Debbie
sure.
Spinelli
I'm sure
from
not Maria Stefanos, that one, which I can show. Yeah, I'm not. It's me memorizing the first half and then only having one take each time and having to look at my paper the second half.
Nice
but
job.
I think it'll be something interesting for students. So what do you think?
I'm curious as to where we are in the process right now.
Okay, great question. So this, the dates have actually changed. I want to make sure not to forget that. So due to a conflict that Travis had, where originally he was going to be here those 3 days, we've now changed the dates to November 12, 13, 14, which is probably actually, Diane and I decided, better for our students because it's the first week of term 2, so they're not really finishing up or preparing for term 1 quizzes or exams. So it's going to be November 12th, 13, 14, which will allow Travis to be here all 3 days because that was our expectation and our agreement, and then he ended up with another conflict. So it's probably better for us, so we've delayed that. So today we had our information session after school, and we actually had close to 25 kids show up. So I hope they all apply. We hope to have about 20 school, maybe there might be someone I talked to afterwards that might apply that couldn't come to the information session. He's sitting over there. So we are in the process of, by probably this time next week or by mid next week, we'll have selected the students. So when they apply online, the application is right below that video on the high school website. So they just follow the link and they go ahead and apply. And we will have a conference call with Arvin Ross, actually, that you saw in there, who will help us look at the students' applications and select the students. Wow. So they participate in student selection as well.
What's the date that you're looking to, select those students?
Well, today is the 20th, so I'm going to say, well, certainly by October 30th. So that's next Thursday.
Will you have students from all 4 grade levels? Or?
We're hoping for the majority being grades 9, 10, and 11, so that they can continue on more than a year. But we would take a senior or two. We had a senior today actually ask a great question about their idea for a project would work itself into a senior project. So we're actually going to entertain that notion quite well, because that's a great idea. So even though they'd only be here for the senior year, if they have an idea or something that they're working on, that they'd like to work on as part of this program and then turn it into their senior project, that they're actually working in the school, doing something with us with technology. So I don't want to give away more than that, but that would be a great idea. So we probably will have a few seniors, but we'd like the majority to be students who are going to continue after this year.
Makes sense.
Debbie, maybe you could just talk again about your personal goals and what you, if you kind of think down the road, what you would hope to get out of this.
So that's a great question. So one of our goals, I've been describing it recently, is we had a lot of questions about what is this actually going to look like throughout the year. And we know some of that. We don't know all of it. So we'll have a teacher who is designated who will be the point person. So it'll be like a club or an activity that students can work on a little bit during the day. They can work on it out of school hours. We don't yet know, but I've been describing it lately as a little bit like going on vacation without knowing your destination. And all of those who know me, that's typically not the way I do things. I kind of already have the outcome and the rollout in my head, but I'm pretty excited that this is very different because I do think it's innovative, and we're going to really follow the students' lead on this, which is the whole idea. Travis Allen gets how these kids learn and what their lives are like today because he experienced it, and some of the traditional things about education didn't really work for him because he was a little bit ahead of us, and they're all ahead of us. So one of the things I like about it is it empowers students to take on that leadership role. So we don't really know where it's going to go, and we're actually okay with that. So this is going to be our learning experience year, so we'll see what the program does. I think our only goal for this year is to start exploring that relationship of what role students can play in moving forward our technology initiatives at the high school level, because they're certainly mature enough. They certainly have lots of ideas and skills and talents that we haven't tapped into. So we're going to look at how we can develop that relationship of students helping with what something should look like. So it could be something as simple. An example I gave today is a teacher saying, for the semester 1 final, I'd like to include a little bit of a performance-based project or a hands-on project. I'm thinking of offering options and going to the iSchool advocates and saying, or one of them, and saying, you know, could you work with me for a few minutes? What could I make as a technology option that kids would like to do? So it could be that advisory. It could be that they take on a project that they think will change the world, has nothing to do with Foxborough High School. And the iSchool advocate folks that you saw will continue via video conferencing and Skyping, will continue to be in touch with our advocates throughout the year. If they have an idea that's similar to students they have already working on something similar at another school in another part of the country, they will hook them up with that. They could be working on the same project together. So there's lots of opportunities and options that we don't really understand fully yet. And I think that's part of the exciting thing. If Mrs. Myers-Packler wants to come to the microphone and add anything I'm forgetting at the moment. But so they're going to be working on internal things that they could help us with by building their leadership and communication and presentation skills. We foresee that some of them could do professional development workshops on something they become an expert in.
So could it span the gamut from our own technology infrastructure in the buildings to lesson planning?
Yes.
To student coursework?
Yes.
To any of the above?
Change the world projects.
So in your mind, this goes across the entire spectrum, has the potential.
It does.
To impact and contribute to our entire technology program.
It really does.
Debbie, how many schools is Travis been to and has initiated this? You might have told us this at the last
Yeah,
meeting.
no, I don't know, actually. Okay. This is their newest of their 5 programs that they offer. So I don't know if they've been to a lot, but the Anderson 1 district he's talking about is a huge, huge county district in another state. So it's quite large. So they've been to a couple, not a lot of them. Okay. And I think one of the things about it is that's what's really growing for them this year. This is their area that's really exploding for them. And it's certainly something that we would like to be a part of, to see what student empowerment in this area could look like. I knew there was something I was just going to say. It's not about the project. Oh, I know what it was. In some of the other districts that they've been in touch with, they're using the students at the exact same time they're rolling out a huge countywide initiative, like a one-to-one initiative, like the one you saw was a one-to-one iPad initiative. We're not there, but that's actually why we're doing it this year, because what we believe is that our goal for this year is to develop that relationship and to empower students to take on this role and see what that role could be when there isn't a really high-stakes, high-priced initiative at stake. I personally wouldn't want to put students in that position. Right. So we're going to explore that relationship the only thing that we said when we talked to the iSchool advocate people, we've had numerous conference calls with them, when they said, what is it internally that some of the students may be able to assist with? What we said was the rollout of Office 365. It's a business environment type interface. Students are getting email accounts this fall. And there are so many collaborative tools on that. There's, OneDrive, OneNote, which could be used by students to take notes. So there's a lot of things that have potential on there, but yet it's not that high stakes, high cost rollout to them. So they could get involved with helping students use OneNote. They could get involved with helping students use the shared folders in OneDrive, or even helping teachers do that. So they're going to actually, the iSchool advocates will get their student email address by the time the training takes place, and that they'll be able to explore and get training themselves from Travis and Arvin on the iSchool, on our Office 365 platform. So they're going to get student level training as a small group, and then we'll see what develops from there.
Maybe we could ask Melissa and Mikkel to share any reactions they have as students to the program.
I watched an APS history class, and I think the first reaction was, well, what's it really about? And I was happy enough to kind of fill in the holes of what they didn't know from what I knew from these meetings and what I heard. And a lot of students, like, I had friends come up to me today and say, hey, so are you guys planning to do the iSchool Advocate thing? Because I am really interested in doing it. And kind of, I think they're more afraid of being the only kids doing it. But I said, no, like, let's all do it together, go in as a group and have fun as friends and learn together. So I think there's, like, a lot. At first there was confusion, but I think after it was cleared up, there's a lot of, like, excitement for it.
How do you think it might help our school? Do you picture students helping teachers? What do you picture when we talk about the program?
I think I kind of do picture kind of like, not to offend anyone, I mean, us young, like, we're kind of really, like, technology comes easy to us. Like, it's what we work with every single day. And I know, like, for example, in my music theory class, I had to use a new software for playing music, and I learned it in 5 minutes. And I think it's something that, like how he talks about that, we don't really tap into what kids can do with technology. And I think it's going to help the school as a whole, not only the teachers that can learn from the students, but the students that can learn from him and how to, like, improve their own knowledge on technology and use it for more than just Facebook and Twitter, you know.
Melissa, how about you?
I totally agree with what she said. Like, students can learn from other students. Like, myself, I'm not, like, the best with technology, so, like, I'd love to learn from, like, my friends who take this and, like, pick up on it, because I don't know how to work, like, an iPhone or an iPad, and, like, if they, like, help me with all that, that'd be so grateful. And then it would, like, help me with my learning, like, abilities in, like, school, because we have, like, flashcard, like, websites now, and you could do that to, like, learn vocabulary and all that, and that could probably help. And then it could also help, like, teachers learn things like the boards, the smart boards, and all that. And, like, if the kids learn how to do that, then the teachers could help. And, I mean, the students can help the teachers, and I think it's really beneficial.
So you guys like the idea of this program?
Yes.
Thanks.
I totally agree with Mikkel about a little bit of confusion, because I would call it gray, Matt, you know, I'm not there is some of it that's gray, and we've talked about that so much in the last 2 weeks, is we can't clearly say to them, it's going to look like this, because we don't know. And that's actually the beauty of it, I think, when it comes to
Be
students.
fun to see where it goes.
And totally, we have not tapped into the power we have within students for some of this stuff, and that personally, you know, makes me really excited to see what we do. But whatever happens this year will be great. So there's no expectation that when we get to the end of school year, X, Y, or Z will happen. It's what potential does this have, and have we explored that this year? And I said to the students today, and this is true of all the conferences I've ever gone to in my personal career, he was the most inspiring keynote I've ever heard. And Diana was there, Amy was there. It really, and it was at Gillette. There were thousands of people there. It was the Mass Q conference 2 years ago, and I literally followed him out as he was leaving the keynote and said, you know, I think you have to come to Foxborough. So that was almost 2 years ago, and then having seen him again in June and spoken to him personally at the bus. He had the bus at the tech conference that was at in June, and I said, this is just meant to be. Like, I'm supposed to do something about this. And I really felt like this is the year to do it, when we have some things that students can work on that aren't high stakes, and then if we develop that relationship, and sometime in the future we have a huge high stakes rollout, then we'll already have them in the loop as advocates for how students learn.
Sounds like you really waffled about this.
I'm very uncertain. I'm so excited about it, I can't stand it.
Steve?
Yeah, Deb, your segue was perfect. The charisma of the young man is evident, but the same with you two, and the way you're thinking, and the peers, and the students that might be interested in this program. So I have two questions. One is boring, about costs. What's the cost of this thing? Do we know, or is this what we discuss later down the road? And my other question is, I think, Deb, you're probably going to be even more blown away than the great expectations we already have of the students. And I'm not hamming it up here, but coming from a high-tech company where I work, I can see innovation and maybe even, you know, down the road things that we might want to say patent or something like that. Like, if something is born here and it's ours, does iSchool, the contract with us, I want to make sure nothing leaves here, or the ownership of where the brain center is, right? So if somebody comes up with, I don't care, a pet dog that's a robot that protects you, Okay, I'm at Voc Tech, I've seen them remake the Segway. They do everything in a year, it's remarkable. And it's the same here. So I just wondered if we're protected for things like
Well,
that when we have
I can certainly talk in
great
generalities.
ideas.
What we're really paying them for is, and I do know the cost, and I can tell you where it's coming from. What we're really paying them for is the professional development. So what I didn't say, because it's really about the students and the focus on them for 3 full days of training with 2 people, but they're actually bringing 4 because they have other people in the company that are moving along with becoming leaders for iSchool advocates. So that's neither here nor there because we're contracting for the 2 people to come. So it's actually professional development for students that's going to help with student-to-student PD, if you will, student-to-adult PD, and other great projects. He's also, the first day he's here, there's going to be a high school faculty-only PD session after school in lieu of their faculty meeting, so they will have direct access to him so that they can fully understand what the students are doing and also learn about his message and learn directly from him. The second day, he's doing a district-wide session that anyone from the other schools can come to hear about. So adult PD is built into their 3 days here, and that is the session that I would be welcome, that I would like to invite school committee to. So that would be on November 13th, which is the Thursday.
What time?
After school, 2:30 to 3:30. Ish. I'll tell you the exact time a little bit later, but roughly 2:30 to 3:30-ish. It might be 3 to 4, I'm not sure yet, we haven't worked out the exact time, but roughly that's the time. So there's adult professional development in the mix here and continued contact with them throughout the year on both levels, certainly regularly for the students and anything that we need as well. So that being said, the cost is $12,000 and $3,000 is coming from our district-wide PD account because it's for all district-wide staff. And maybe a little bit from the high school PD, probably a quarter and a quarter district-wide, and a quarter from the district-wide, a quarter from the high school PD, and then we'll see if we need to shift a little bit money around there. And then $3,000 from student activities types accounts, and then the half balance is from, we're suggesting that it be from salary savings, because we have, as you know, we had a little bit of savings in salary this year that Bill provided at his last update, so that's where we anticipate getting the other $6,000.
And is that a school year cost?
Yes, school year, that's for a full year.
And then
correct.
programmatically, we'll look at running this as a club, as an activity.
We are.
So each year, we'll look at reestablishing if we want it.
Yes, the students are, I don't know what it would cost in the ensuing years, this is the initial, but the students will be getting an elective credit.
And on Steve's point about innovation, do you want to come back to us with how that works? It's an interesting question. I don't know if Travis has thought about that and how we...
Well, I think that since we're paying him for it, we're paying for the PD. This is a company that provides professional development and consultation. That's all.
That's largely what it is, right?
Yes, they don't develop products, so that is not, I don't think, even an issue at all.
So the way to think about that is for $12,000, we're getting professional development around innovation, around empowering students to help facilitate
and leadership
innovation.
skills.
Which
and a full year follow for the 20 students with their projects and help with their projects, actually. Ongoing support. So let's say Cal decides to do it and she has a project that's way beyond Foxborough she wants to work on. They will help her with that. So it's ongoing support for the advocates throughout the year. It's a lot of contact. And they like to do it through Skype or some type of video conferencing because they like to be able to speak person to person.
But it's so one way for us to think about it is that in our year of technology here, this is a program to support that.
Yes.
To enable our students to support that. It's $12,000 for professional development to help us further our technology initiatives
Yes.
throughout the district.
Half for the adults and about half for the students.
Can any of this, is any of the, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
for parents and or guardians and that type of thing, or parent engagement, or it's all?
No, because we don't know what it is yet. I think we're a little bit early for that. I think we've got to really see how this develops and let it take on its natural life, I think. And so it really isn't. I know the school committee had interest when I mentioned it under my goals last month. So we certainly would invite the 5 of you if you want to come and hear his message, since you're also in the loop on that. But in terms of a general parent workshop, we're not there yet. It'd be hard to, I think at the end of the year, it'd be great for them to show what they've done, but
Yeah.
I keep pointing to you, it doesn't mean you have to do it, but I'm just saying, representative
No
students.
pressure.
Representing 20, no, I'm not saying they have to.
Your rep, you get pointed at a lot.
But I mean the students in general. I think we have to let it naturally evolve and see what it is that they do, and then worry about the rest later.
Okay, thanks, Deb.
And down the road, I mean, Amy puts together a wonderful parent technology night. So down the road, if this, once this potential is harnessed and it evolves.
We may have them this year
perhaps,
showing
yeah,
what they've been doing for projects.
Right.
It really depends.
for parents. So
Yes.
there would be an opportunity
It would be.
eventually for parents to,
It would be.
witness what's going on.
So do we need to vote on funding this or anything like that?
No, as long as
or-
she can find it in the current funds, I think.
Budget.
Sounds terrific.
I think, you know,
it's
you don't
exciting.
need to approve funds because whatever it is we do for PD or students, we
Within
can
the
track
budget.
with those people.
Right.
But I think it's good information to tell you how we plan to do this. And since, as you pointed out, since technology is our big push this year and next, the timing seems right. Because if, as Travis said to me personally, if you wait until you as the adults learn all you have to learn about technology and its role in the classroom before you push it down to students, you're way behind and you'll never catch up. And you probably are way behind now, and there's no chance of you catching up.
There's
And I
no
said,
probably.
That's really true.
Nothing probable
That's
about
absolutely
that.
true.
It's a fact.
So he's got that flipped version of you empower the students to help you lead the way, and then you don't have to worry about waiting till you all, my generation, feel comfortable forcing it down, which is a very good point.
I have just one last question. Our new technology coordinator, his role and view and
Yes.
responsibility with this program.
Yes, so Aaron's been in, on our Director of Technology, Aaron Hardy, he's been in all the conference calls, and he's very much in favor of it, because he's definitely believes that the students, can play a major role. The one thing we have decided we don't want is these students are not going to be the glitch fixers. They're not the troubleshooters if somebody has a bad connection or lost their internet. They're not gonna be the ones that are running around fixing things. We have staff for that. They're going to be working on more innovative, meaningful projects that they feel could contribute or that they really personally have a passion about.
Classroom specific,
Or change the world specific.
but not.
Or project
But
specific.
not infrastructure problem.
No, they're not going to be the
Yeah,
troubleshooter.
the users of it, right?
Instructionally.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're not going to be the technicians.
Good.
We don't want to tie up their time. They have much more to offer for that.
Any other questions about the program?
Sounds great.
It's very exciting.
A lot of interest from the table.
Yes, so we're hoping, come on, students.
Yes.
Definitely go on and apply if you were there today.
Did all the students see your video?
Yes.
During the presentation?
Oh, yes. Thanks for saying that, because I want to thank Diana Myers-Pacla, but all of the faculty at Foxborough High School, but particularly the Social Studies Department, who took the responsibility to make sure all their classes in grades 9, 10, and 11 saw it, and then the English department took on the seniors.
Great.
So I really want to especially thank them, because they had to take some time out of their classes to do that. Those people are actually quite interested. The Social Studies Department in particular has come up to me and said, they're all for anything that builds student leadership, and this is really creative and innovative and something that's not currently offered. So they're very much.
I had one more thought, in just how this dovetails with a lot of our strategic plan and the global connections piece. I can see this perhaps taking on that part of our strategic
so
plan.
many.
It's exciting.
There's so many
It's very
possibilities.
exciting. Mhm.
And I want to thank Diana also, because I think that the two of you continue to drive innovation into the high school, and I really appreciate that. The more I travel the country and hear about high school programs, they are starting to do unique, creative, out-of-the-box kinds of things. Mrs. Abrams, I know, is setting the stage for that at the middle school, and then the things, Diana, I just want to encourage you to go forward. It's a balance, right, between traditional instruction, traditional curriculum, and real-world, 21st century types of opportunities. So, the senior project and how you're expanding that, and now the iSchool program. I do think these are things that the committee is very supportive of. So thank you.
Yeah. To compliment the students, I think what we talk about all the time is, as a team, we have such belief in our kids here in Foxborough.
Yeah.
Such belief in them and what they can offer us. So we're humble enough to say, show us what you can do.
Smart. That's smart. Great. Thank you. Good
Humble or
program.
wise? Wise enough, maybe.
Okay. Okay to move on?
Yep.
Everybody good? Do we need to wait for Sean, or is Caitlin going to?
No, Caitlin's going to. Our athletic director, Caitlin Brown, as you know, is on maternity leave, is here to speak, because obviously Caitlin is our permanent athletic director, and it's been wonderful to have Mr. Mackin filling in as the interim athletic director. But when anything comes up that's programmatic or that involves decision-making or budget proposals, we're going to have Caitlin here, so I really appreciate you being here.
No, thank you for having me. And
Next
just
time you have to bring someone else.
I know, no, and
The two babies.
the two babies. Yeah, I don't think you'd want them here. They're in bed, hopefully, knock on wood, if my husband is doing what he should be doing. So, fingers crossed. And I just want to say the athletic department would love any student. So if anyone wants to help us out with any kind of technology, I'm always looking for different ways to incorporate technology into the athletic department. It's kind of one of my
That
smart
could be
goals.
a project.
Yeah, no, that's what
A
I'm
student
saying.
saying they just
and even
want to
with
do
like
the-
an app to communicate better with the community, there are so many ideas that I think you probably know how to instruct me on different
Great
ways
idea.
to help communicate, because that's one of my ongoing goals is better communication between the athletic department and the community, and it's not easy, and that's why it's ongoing. So it's never done. But so if it's just, even though I'm not here, you can contact me through email, and I will answer. Hopefully, as long as there's not a catastrophe at home. So,
So Caitlin, do you want to start with the girls' ice hockey program?
Yes.
And, you know, it'd be probably helpful to give the committee a little bit of background on what
Sure.
happened last year.
Okay.
And then where we are now and what this proposal's about.
Last year, I was approached by Oliver Ames and Mansfield athletic directors. For the last 2 years, they've had a co-op program for their girls' hockey team. They were worried about the numbers, and they came to Foxborough for a variety of reasons. One, because we have a lot of young women playing hockey at younger levels. We have the second rink at Foxborough, and a lot of that is due to females playing hockey. So they came to me because they identified this community as a community that might benefit from having some of our female athletes participate in a girls hockey program. We had 4 female athletes playing on the boys hockey program, and if you're not aware about boys and girls hockey, the main difference between the two sports is that there's checking in boys hockey and there's not checking in girls hockey. So there really becomes a safety, one of the reasons is a safety factor for our female athletes and smaller young men who are playing against 18-year-old boys, and we are in a very competitive league. And I spoke to my boys hockey coach about this and thought that this would be a great opportunity to kind of develop our female athletes. And I don't look at it as just female athletes, I look at it as students. We want to keep these students in the Foxborough school system, and so I saw this as an opportunity. It was a 1-year opportunity to see if this is something that we want to continue going forward with. And looking at the numbers from talking to the hockey people from down below, it looks like we have a lot of female athletes playing, or female student athletes playing at the younger level. So we went to and it's not just as easy as let's just have Foxborough. So we had to get approval from the athletic directors and then the MIA to have Foxborough join Oliver, Ames, and Mansfield and as part of this co-op system. And the idea is to really look forward and kind of, again, building opportunities for our student athletes to participate in a variety of different sports, which so what we'd like to do is the athletic department is able to pay. There is a fee of $500, and what the athletic department would like to do is cover the cost for our student athletes. The other schools, and I can't speak for them, they handle it in a different way, but if given the opportunity for this 1 year to look at it and cover the costs we've identified 5 girls who would like to play. And so it comes out of our budget, and it's something that I've, after speaking with Mr. Mackin, Sean Mackin, the interim AD, and looking at our budget, I thought something that we could do, and I would really like to do, because for me, it's just about getting people to participate and having, I'm thinking about students first, so if really supportive of that.
So to add to Caitlin's wonderful explanation is, you might be thinking what's changed, because we explored this last year, and we were going to go with a self-pay pilot, because that's what it is. And any other time we've looked to add sports over the past many years, and it isn't very often that we add a sport. So many years ago, when boys ice hockey was added, because there was no hockey at all. And when boys and girls lacrosse came in, we usually have historically, if there's people in the community that are interested, they do self-pay for a period of time until we're sure we can float a team, and then it gets folded into the budget. So why is this different? Because that's the question I ask. If that's typically what we ask different sports groups, that when you're not sure you can get started, or you're not sure you have the numbers, that make it a self-pay sport, and if it takes off, then we'll fold it in. What's different is that when boys ice hockey, for example, I'm just going to use those two examples, first came in, there was no hockey program. So they're starting a new sport that we don't offer. When boys and girls lacrosse were suggested, they both came at the same time. We had no lacrosse program. So we did ask them to be self-paying until we could confirm that it was self-sustaining. This is different because we already offer a boys hockey program. So by asking this team to self-pay, what we're saying is we're paying for the boys and we're not paying for the girls as a pilot. So that makes this different, and it makes it an issue of equity, not trying out a new sport. So that's why I felt differently about this after speaking to Mr. Mack, because that was the exact question I asked, is why is this different, and what has changed from our initial proposal to just try out a self-pay pilot. So that's what's changed.
Did you say, though, that with the boys hockey, they did have to self-pay when it was first started?
When it was first started, because there was no hockey, but once you already offer the sport for boys, then we need, for an equity purpose, if you're going to run a girls' team, then we should support it.
But what did we do for the boys, though?
Well, we did, but they did self-pay for, I don't know what period of time, because it wasn't under me.
The difference was back then, we didn't have an equity issue between the genders. We had a boys' team that wanted to play. Now that we have a girls' team that wants, where we're already paying for a boys, I think that what Debbie's saying is
Yeah,
different.
that's an issue with Title IX, I think, across the country, is that, you look at the equity between sports.
If you want to try a new sport, let's say it's, badminton was mentioned as a popular thing, but let's say either boys or girls want to see if they can float a badminton team, then we would probably ask them to self-pay and get it started, because we have no badminton. But now we already offer boys hockey. So if you want to be equitable, you need to support girls hockey as well. So it's equity issue within the sport.
So if you had a boys team, let's say they wanted to do the badminton, and they had to self-pay initially, and then 2 years down the road, the girls wanted to do it.
Same situation.
It would be similar to this. We would have to, okay.
So it's $500 a student. You have 5 students, so it's 25. If we don't have any students next year, is there any obligation?
And it's a 1 year. It's a 1
thing?
year, and then we're going to evaluate and see where we're at. And I think that the younger grades are probably more excited about this opportunity. And with a co-op program, it would allow us to kind of build a base where we're not paying a huge amount of money for 5. It's about trying to build that base. But it's a 1 year. We'll look at it, evaluate the situation, and see where we're at after a year.
And Caitlin, you're comfortable you can cover that in the existing budget?
Yes,
I take it.
Yes, we are. I mean, we ran the number. I mean, myself, we looked at I came in a couple of days last week to look at it and to make sure that we could, looking at any kind of future expenses that we had last year, we took that into account and took that out of our budget before we even looked at this cost, to make sure that we were okay.
The other question I have is, do we know that the girls want to do that as opposed to staying in the boys program?
Well, and that is there. I think it's.
How do we handle that? Right.
Well, and it's something that I've kind of. I struggled. I'll be honest. I struggle with, because I think there are a few women that are anxious about joining a team without Foxborough. There's 5 of them. They're afraid of joining a team. Some of that peer pressure that went along. Though I spoke to them in the spring, and we had a conversation that one of the Foxborough girls would be a captain of the team, to kind of include them. And having those conversations with the girls, I think there is still that anxiety about joining the team. And there was a worry about the cost of the program itself and what that would mean for them. So that is one of the reasons why I, looking at the equity, wanted to make sure that we, helped with that, because we're so grateful. I am so grateful to all of you in the town of Foxborough that we don't have user fees here in Foxborough. And we're the only school in the Hockomock League that really holds true to that in every aspect. So I'm so lucky, because a lot of times hockey is a program that there are fees added, and I think my athletic directors are very jealous of the fact that, you know, we don't have to worry about that here in Foxborough. So I'm so grateful to that. I think having conversations with the girls, and that's why it's a 1-year commitment to see how it goes. I just really want to get them on the ice. I've seen them at practice. I know that they can skate, and I know that they like to participate, but they don't get a lot of game time. Minus a graduate from last year who played goalie, so she wasn't dealing with the physical aspect of forechecking and that kind of thing. So, you know, I really want to see them get on the ice, and I'm hoping that, I mean, to me, that's to showcase their skills and their talents, because they really are a talented group of young women that I just would like to showcase in a game setting that they don't have the opportunity to do that here, and it's because of safety purposes.
Well, I think we look to you for your recommendation about what's the right thing to do. But just so I understand, is it right to infer then that the girls, is it this year or next year? This year.
It will be this
year. So the girls this year won't have a choice. If they want to play ice hockey, they'll play in this program.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then next,
and
then
we'll
we'll evaluate it. And then we'll evaluate it.
I'm good with that. I just wanted to understand it.
No, and I will sit down with the students in the spring and have a conversation with them again in the spring. And we had a conversation in the spring last time. I spoke to the students directly because to me it was important to speak to them.
So do you need a motion?
Maybe. Let's see if Steve has a question for a comment first.
First of all, I'm glad that we're going to have more parents driving kids with a lot of hockey gear in their vehicles if it comes to pass. Do we need to understand if there's any more insurance costs to protect the students and families if there's an injury?
No.
No, it's the same policy that would effectively cover any of our student athletes. So.
Thank you. That was my question.
Yes, and it is a vote because I attached the your policy, and the second paragraph says participation in interscholastic athletics will be subject to approval by the Foxborough School Committee, etc.
So, Katie, would you like to make a motion?
I actually have one more question first before we move on this. What about any incidental transportation costs aside from the $500 fee?
There may, I mean, for practice, I can't speak for, I mean, we don't cover any cost of anyone traveling to any kind of practices.
No, but buses for
But buses,
games.
there's not, it's, that's being covered by another school district, so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the request for the athletic department to be allowed to pay the player fee for our new girls ice hockey program. Fee for each girl is $500.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
You have another one,
I have
think.
another one.
So I'll give you a little bit of background on this, and then I'll turn it over to Caitlin. So we had a great meeting with the boosters last spring, and we're trying to get another one this fall. And really, it's just a great opportunity to partner with the boosters in all kinds of things that Caitlin's been working on. So I give you a lot of credit for that. You know, around that time, we were meeting a lot in the spring about both, you know, to try to understand what do the boosters do, how do they support our students, what are some things maybe they're doing that we're not, and that we should be, so all of that continues to be digested, and when we have our second meeting in the fall, you'll probably see some discussion of that in our budget cycle about the outcome of that. We're not quite ready for that yet, but one of the things that came out of that is Caitlin did a great analysis of participation rates in all of our sports and all of our athletic teams, and what came out of her spring assessment was that we have our own equity issues. So we had 3 sports, all track, for which the ratio of students to athletes was way beyond, much to than all of our other sports, which typically our other sports were anywhere from 40 to 1 to 17 to 1, like students to coach. So that's the typical range. Most are in the 20s-ish. So she did a great assessment of the ratio, and what came out of that is that we have more and more students participating in track, but we don't have the coaches.
And and it's a little, I mean, you look at, these are the numbers, and I'm just grateful that our students continue to participate in sports, and I think it's a testament to you all students and balancing your time between, I think we're getting more and more students who can find the time to balance between the music program or other activities and are participating, especially in track, which is really allowed students to be able to run on their own if they need to, if they have something after school, and kind of find different ways. But what we found was we had 3 coaches in the winter, and we had 103 student athletes. And I go back to safety a little, just making sure that there's enough supervision. And talking about student leaders, a lot of our track captains take on that leadership role of making sure we're doing, but you know, just to have an adult around to make sure that there's some safety, we were concerned about that. And I think those numbers, so we looked at that number for winter track, and then again, these numbers have continued to grow. We had 64 female student athletes and 80 male student athletes participating in the spring. We had 4 coaches for all of those student athletes, and again, it became just having someone there, a safety issue for me and for the other coaches involved. Also in winter track, we have and Amy could speak to this, we go to all of our meets are in Boston. We run all of our meets at Reggie Lewis and or BU in different facilities in Boston. It's something that the league, part of our dues that we pay to the league, cover those costs. And we also we'll have JV meets in Taunton or Franklin, and so now suddenly we have 3 coaches with 103 athletes. How do you divide those coaches to go to which site? You had the head coach kind of driving himself back and forth to places just to make sure that there was enough coverage. So we really see a need for an extra coach for those sports. And those numbers, we just bought all new track uniforms too this year because of those numbers. They've just really skyrocketed over the last 3 years.
Wow. I have a couple questions. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Weren't you just saying, what you were talking about the ratio?
Yeah, I was just looking back at that as well.
And the ratio
Did I
you just
bring it?
said would be right in line with
No,
what
the
we have
one,
right
I
now.
think the 40 was the track was the big one. Most of them were like, I think boys ice hockey had about 24 athletes participating, and they had 2 coaches for the boys ice hockey.
For 24?
For 24.
They're mostly around 20.
Exactly.
The sheet you had was up to 40 to 1.
Yes, and
these were the ones that were 40
the 40
to
to 1.
So I misspoke.
Yes.
Because now I wish I had brought your list, because I
know,
still look
and
at that all the
I
time.
apologize for not having
So the ones we were the ones we were worried about are the ones that were 40 to or more to 1.
Yes, and that was
that's
really
these.
That was track.
You've got 103.
So we have
3 coaches.
So it's like
3
30.
coaches for 103 students. That's
So
not
they were
40 to
that
1.
was on the, and then you had 40 to 1 was the boys track, because you had 2 coaches for boys track. So that was the high end of, so 1 coach for 40, and then after that, girls spring track again was 32 to 1, and then the 3 coaches and the math. This is why I was a social studies teacher.
The challenge is
it sounds
in
like you're on the
track, there are
high
many
end,
different
but-
events.
Yeah.
Right.
So you don't have the whole team together like a basketball team.
Right.
There are many different types of events, and they
Yeah.
need different types of coaches.
Yeah.
Is that Mikhail? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually part of the winter track team, so I can kind of speak a little bit on this. I know last year we had Mr. Releva, Mr. Nash, and Mr. Aldridge as coaches. Mr. Releva took all the distance people, so they basically, it's probably like a quarter of the team does distance for JV and varsity, and they basically just run on their own outside. And then Mr. Nash took the sprinters, yeah, and they go on their own outside running. So that basically left high jump, hurdles, and shot put, and long jump, all for Mr. Eldridge, which are like 4 events. And I think I can speak to the growing of, I started off as a freshman being the only girl part of the shot put team, with like 6 other guys. And starting sophomore year, that number grew from just me to being a total of, I think it was 8 girls total that joined the team for specifically shot put. And then this year alone, I've had a lot of new girls come up and say that have moved here from other schools or so, say, oh yeah, I'm joining specifically for this field event. And shot put isn't the most popular event for girls. So I can imagine that there's going to be like a huge increase in all the other events that are more popular. So I think I personally I mean, I think Mr. Eldridge does the best he can getting around to all the events. It's something really hard, having to focus on all the different, there's probably like 10 to like 20 kids in each event alone. So I think.
And they're all at different places.
They're all in different places.
And they need different coaching.
We don't have like they use it we have boys and girls basketball in A and B gym, and then we have C gym being used by the track program. Until we need it for basketball later on at night. So this is during the winter. I'm just using the winter, for example. And so you have shot put in there, so then high jump, but then you have some using the weight room to use some strength training while they're doing that. And so they're in there, and then you have people running, it scares me with the snowbanks and the people running around outside, the distance runners, but also doing workouts around the school because, we don't have a track on campus, so a lot of them do run around. They've mapped out around the school and how much that is. And then you also have the sprinters who then use the inner area to run around, and they've mapped out different workouts for that. And so you just end up having students kind of all over, and the hurdlers are in the hallway here. So you have
it's
them
a different scenario than that many kids say all in one gym for volleyball.
Yeah.
And
right.
Yeah.
Katie,
what
I
do
think
other
you're
towns do in Hockomock? The Hockomock
Well,
League?
this is.
I'm just kind of curious.
We actually we probably have our numbers have grown, and I could get you the number. I think more and more we've had this discussion as ADs are looking to add coaches for this reason, especially with track. There's been a big push with the track coaches because of, and with the Sharon athletic director and I were having this conversation just the other day because also of the JV schedule that we have created now as because of just looking for facilities. Not only we need them during practice, as if we have our team is split in half and half of them are going to Taunton and the other half are going to Boston, suddenly we don't have enough. You have 50 kids, so you have one coach with 50 kids heading to one area, and it's hard to just manage those numbers. And that is one of the realities of winter track. It is track is unique. And I think I wouldn't want there to be this many coaches if we had smaller teams. I don't think that is a use of our money. But right now our teams have continued to grow, and I was shocked last year these numbers continued to jump every year, which is wonderful, which is what I want as an athletic director. But just trying to figure out how to manage those numbers.
I think the important thing is that you're starting to do this evaluation. And I think it'd be good if we saw this maybe on an annual basis.
Well, you're going to see it in the budget process because we have some other things we need to discuss as part of that.
Well, and you're not looking for an approval on this tonight. You're talking about support for this to be looked at in the budget process. Is that correct?
Well, no, that's why it's before you tonight, because we're in a little bit of a dilemma. And you notice it doesn't say where the funding is coming from, so I'll try to finish painting the picture. If we wait to do it in the budget process, that would be for next year. And we'd become concerned with this many kids or more participating this year, and whether we're willing to put forward a proposal, as we are, to have you consider it for this year, which was not budgeted for. So it's close to $10,000 for these 3 coaches. So again, Bill's budget scenario, and yes, I understand that it's October, so that's the discussion that I hope to have now. It's early in the year. We do have some salary savings of about $35,000 to the good, roughly.
Yep.
So we are proposing to use that. I know it's early, and I know that feels close in terms of, finances, but we felt if we went another year without bringing this to your attention and waited to do it in the regular budget cycle and went through this year with these ratios the same or more, because we are having more kids be interested, that if it became a safety issue, we'd feel remiss not bringing it to you. So I guess the choices are for you to approve it, and with that budget, with that funding purpose, or say we'd like to wait to put it in the budget for FY16, or not even then. But for tonight, it's really a choice of asking us to wait and not funding it for this year, or funding it through our assessment of how we can afford it.
To me, and thank you, because that's different than what I understood from reading the packet. To me, anytime you talk about safety, and you talk about $10,000 in a 27, 29, whatever it is, $1 million budget, knowing that we often underrun our budget, it's kind of a no-brainer. To me, though, I think what it says is, it's $10,000 less flexibility we have when we get into the spring and we're looking at finalizing numbers. But again, when you present it as a safety issue, I know what my initial reaction is, but let me ask the committee if they have any comments or thoughts or questions beyond.
Well, I agree. Definitely safety is a concern. I think my concern right now is we're going to be making a decision about this, and we don't know what other conflicting priorities there might be as part of, as you're alluding to, that there's going to be other things that are coming before us.
The year after.
Right. But
Correct.
still, because this is going to need to be absorbed in the next, but if we put it in now, it's going to be in the budget for the next year. So what other athletic programs or requests are there going to be? And, so I'm concerned if I'm making a decision about this today, and then something else may be a priority, then I've already kind of committed to this, and I'm not gonna know what's ahead of me to say, because I hear what you're saying, but 10,000 here, 10,000 there. It all adds up into the pot, and
I think it's a good question, Katie.
We need to be really thoughtful about that.
Caitlin, I assume if there were other sports that we had an imbalance, they'd be presented now as well.
And that's, this is this to me is a big imbalance, and it's a safety issue. I think what Debbie kind of alluded to is one of the things we wanted, or one of my goals is to really understand the booster clubs and how they work. And again, that goes back to Title IX kind of equity across all of our sports. Believe it or not, and it's just something that gets brought up sometimes. So working with the booster clubs, and we have great volunteers, parental volunteers who do tremendous work for each sport, and they put in their heart and soul into these booster clubs. And so what we're trying to do is, one of the things is looking at assistant coaches, and sometimes trying to see, and it wouldn't be at this point, this cost.
Yeah, so I don't actually mind being.
Are you saying that you're looking at the booster club to
Well, the booster
provide?
So I don't actually mind being a little more.
I'm sorry,
I don't mind being a little more transparent about this at this point, because it's going to be coming up in the next couple of months.
One other, before you answer that, the other issue I have is that I would like to know what the other Hockomock teams are doing. I mean, just as a comparison.
I can, and I will get that. I'll get those numbers and what they have for numbers, because every team has a different amount of student. Like for Mansfield, who has again another high percentage, I can get their exact number of coaches, and I can get that to you, because it is something we've had. I think every Hockomock and school, and I don't know what their final budget, but we've had these ongoing email chains with each other regarding assistant coaches and getting more coaching and getting more supervision, not just for track, but just I think overall is we have all the schools are having more and more athletes participating, and kind of what is our role as athletic directors and the school's role in terms of budgetary to providing
so
that.
Caitlin, let me ask you a question. Our next meeting will be in November. If we asked you to come back with a little bit of that data about what other towns are doing, would it be A, too much of a personal imposition while you're out, and B, too late to hire the winter coach, which will be the first one needed?
It will be close with the winter coach, but we've had close before. So I mean, I understand your concern, and I don't like to spend money. I get I look at it as kind of the town's money, and I wouldn't ask for it if there wasn't some sort of issue, but I think there needs to.
Bill, go ahead.
I'd like to make a suggestion. I would say, and I understand where the committee is coming from, and it's a good question, a good way to go at it, but based on the winter session being more cumbersome because of the way we have to split the teams, which is not the kids' fault, it's really our fault for facility issues, and not really wanting to have, probably an unsafe level of coaching there, I would recommend, approval of the winter side for 3,000.
Yes.
Let Caitlin come back with the balance, and that gives you some time on the balance for the spring, which is a different program and it's run differently. So,
Katie, you okay with that?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm trying to approach this like we do with kind of a lot of the things that come before us. What do other towns do?
Yeah.
I don't think the athletics should be really any different than the curriculum as we kind of approach
Steve?
that. So.
Bill's suggestion was where my headspace was. I'm right with Katie. I love to wait on votes anyway, on anything, whether we're buying sewing machines or lacrosse sticks.
That's good, you
But-
balanced me out
Well,
there.
I just want to make one thing, I just want to understand something. We keep saying the word, it's a safety issue, and I don't want the general public to get
Okay.
the impression that we have an unsafe
Good point.
environment
Yeah.
if we don't. And if we do, we need to correct that promptly, right? Probably by law, okay? So, I just want to make sure that we understand and convey to the public that this is it's more than a nice to have, it's closer to a need. And it's to optimize our safety for our students, faculty, and visiting opponents, or whatever they're called.
And that's very well
Yes.
said.
Okay?
And I, yes.
So, if somebody were to say, as I added it up, it was about $6,800 for the three positions, assuming that our administration.
998.
It's almost 10,000.
Oh, you know what? This is a
98.
Windows phone, that's why.
It's
And I used the
98.
calculator. I'm
98,
sorry. Okay, so
62
let's go back to the 10,000. If we're at $3,200 for the winter track coach, we can still load balance down the line if, say, the track program gets a lower number of participants and we don't need as many coaches. Am I correct there?
Yes.
Right? Okay, so, and I ask
give
that
Caitlin
honestly.
credit.
I
She
just want
does
to make
not-
sure.
The coaches, the coaches' stipends are in the teacher's contract, but
Mm-hmm.
if a lower number of students participate and they don't need that, sometimes you go without an assistant coach.
Yes.
It really
Right.
depends.
Yeah,
It
it
really
really-
does tailor it to
Right.
what's happening, because it does change from year to year.
So I just want to circle back real fast. Do we have an unsafe track program right now? Yes or no?
I I like the way, I would say this
I was
is-
nice at first, now I'm
No,
being
no, I know, now
clinical.
you're putting me on the spot. And
Well, I'm putting the question
Yeah,
to the room.
I look at it, I mean, the one thing that concerns me, and I'll say this, is the facility issue, is that we're all over the place, and the track program is, and you know that you guys are kind of in different parts of the school at a variety of times. Is it more of a need than it's just a nicety to have an extra person around? I think it's more of a need than a
Yeah.
nicety. I think I trust our coaches to make good decisions in terms of being where they should be, but I guess maybe it's part of I always worry about that one time where the coach isn't there, if there's something happens, and, because we're located at so many different spots
So it's a
around
proper
this.
management
It's a
decision.
proper, it's,
All
yeah,
right.
it's more of a management issue of the student athletes at the.
But you are kind of describing that if they're all over the place, I mean, an addition of one coach isn't really going to solve that particular problem when you're describing all of these different areas of where athletics.
You could probably, I would say, because so if you have someone in the hallway working with the hurdlers,
Yeah.
and then you have someone in the C gym working with the high jumpers and or shot put people at the same time, and then you have someone working with the distance people, and then you have someone working with the sprinters, then we're all kind of covered, and all of our
Right.
locations are
I
covered.
think-
And that's
I think
kind of
we've-
what I'm looking,
I think we've covered this well.
yeah.
Tina has one more comment, then I'd like to entertain a motion to move on.
I want to clarify, because earlier you said $6,000 was going to come from the salary savings for the iSchool program. So what we're really talking about is the 6,000 from there, and then at least 3,000, maybe 10,000. So that would leave us with 19,000 in wiggle room. Bill, okay. I just want to make sure I understand.
So we still have wiggle room.
That's at current budget.
I was going to
That's
say,
a current
this is
budget
very
out,
early
right.
in the
Yeah.
year
We
as
have a
far
lot
as,
of-
I'm
That's
less concerned, because,
Right.
the way the budget process works, as you know, we typically, if we're in trouble, you're in trouble at the beginning of the year because of your salary positions, okay? We're actually starting off in a good position because of, and that was something that couldn't have been known at the time because of kindergarten enrollments. So when you get kind of that one bonus thing, I think it's giving you some leeway here to do a few things that you might normally not have the leeway this early in the year to do.
Well, that's
So-
why I describe it, Tina, as it just gives us less flexibility in the spring.
Right.
But, okay, so
Chair, could I just?
we want to go on this further? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question, and that's this.
Okay.
Can we postpone the vote until we get more information with the intention of voting the winter track coach when we have more information that's been
Well,
requested?
I think the point,
It's the opposite.
I think the point that
No.
was made earlier,
Why
The
not?
point made earlier was there is a need to get a good, don't wait till all the good coaches are hired. The recommendation right now, as I understand it, for a motion to go forward is to approve the hiring of the winter track and postpone the rest until the beginning of November when Caitlin will come back.
Bevy, is that a motion?
I would like to make that
I'll
as a
second it.
motion.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Should we I'm sorry, can we put the amount of the salary?
Friendly
in
amendment to the motion?
Just to
Go right.
amend the motion to
Yeah,
say to
I
approve
was
the
gonna
winter
say the
track
same.
assistant coach in the amount of $3,126.
So let's, go ahead.
If you will allow me to
Yes.
just double check, because I noticed that Mr. Mackin's memo says in accordance with the FEA agreement for 2015-16, but I believe that that number is 2014-15. So as long as you allow me to amend the number to what this year's current contract states, which I do think is that number, but now I see where your confusion came.
Yeah.
So I will do that.
According, yes, and include according to the 2014-2015 winter track schedule.
Yeah, you could even say up to.
Bevy, you approve that friendly amendment?
I approve my friendly amendment.
And Steve still seconds? And we're still all in favor?
I still second, yes. Aye.
I think that, thank you. I think that's a smart, Bill, thank you, good suggestion.
Yeah.
Caitlin, excellent presentation.
No, and I thank you, and I really do thank you for everything that you do, and, of course. And I don't, I wouldn't be here unless I thought it was important, so thank you for everything.
Caitlin, just because you are here, while you are here, you and I have communicated individually, but I want to put this in public in front of the committee. We're having a great fall
Yes,
with our
we are.
football team
Yes.
and our boys soccer team. I'm not sure about the girls' sports, I'm not so close to them.
They're all, as I said, my heart is still in Foxborough, even though I'm not here, because I can't help but follow along, and I use Twitter a lot. And I said they're not personal tweets now; they're very retweet of what's going on. But our boys' football team has a huge game on Friday for the Hockomock League Championship. Our boys' soccer team right now is leading in the Hockomock League, and there's two divisions in the
And they're
Davenport
playing
division.
tonight
And they're
as we
playing
speak,
tonight,
right?
and so I'll check my phone when I get when I'm not in here. And then our girls' soccer team is in second place right now with some big games coming up in the Hockomock League. They're one game behind Oliver Ames. Our volleyball team has had a little bit of a struggle, but I know that they're very supportive. Our cross-country team was recently ranked in the top 20 for the small schools in the state. We've got some excellent individual participation, and our boys' cross-country team has had some great victories, and they participated at the Twilight Meet this weekend, and we'll be looking forward to the Hockomock League meet and the state meet. And then our cheerleading program has also grown, where we have a lot more cheerleaders. If you noticed at the football games, there's a lot more there, so there's more participation at the cheerleading level. And
Do you know how the boys' golf team did today in the
I
tournament?
don't know, and I was actually. Do you guys know? I looked on Twitter, and I was going to coach Texta.
Because they were in the second round.
They were in the second round, and Kyle Newcomb individually won or tied for first place in the Hockomock League Championship last week, and our boys team came in second with Nick and Tim Luciano also participating with Kyle Newcomb. And again, this is where my heart is still in Foxborough, so if you kids don't realize
Is it the golf boosters we should thank for the fabulous new boys' golf pants they had on at the pep rally? I was
didn't
personally
see
a
it.
fan of the
They're
statement.
plaid, they're blue and
oh,
gold
Big
plaid.
diamond, like,
that sounds
gesture
about right.
type
That
things.
sounds good for
I personally was a fan. I
Yeah.
thought they really stood out, so I'm for it.
And our field hockey program has been, I think, every year that Melissa Borderi has been coach, they've made the state tournament, and they won today. They beat Sharon 2-0 with Meredith Cronin scoring both of those goals. So they've again have had another successful season. So it's been a tremendous fall, and I really think it's just the community support of all these kids, and it's been wonderful to see them do well, even from afar. So I've made it to one girls soccer game, and I'm hoping, since they'll all be, a lot of the teams will be in the playoffs, that I will head to bring the little kids around. So.
Caitlin, just to formalize my request I made to you personally, I got another call this morning about boys freshman soccer next year. Not this year, no cost this year. So I would just like to formally ask that you put that into the budget for next year. And I know you and Debbie have talked about that, but the boys soccer program is growing nicely.
Yes. I mean, talk about a turnaround. And the last couple, I mean, we miss Nick and Dan, who are, Dan's doing well at Connecticut College, because I watched, I joke that I follow them through when they go, because I like to see, especially I went to an SCAC school, so I like to, but
To clarify that,
it's
it's
already
my understanding that that position is already in the budget.
Exactly.
It just went unfilled when there weren't enough numbers.
Exactly. So
we're actually in really good shape for that.
Yes, we are. We have that. That's one of the positions that if we don't have the numbers for, we're not going to fill just for the sake of having. But with the boys' number continue to grow, that is a position that's already in the budget. That's already there. So
Great.
we hope that
One
we
phone
hope to
call
fill
I
it.
continue to get.
Yes.
But it's already there.
Right.
So
Right.
we won't have any
Right.
trouble meeting that. So that's great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for coming tonight.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin.
I didn't mean to bring us to an abrupt end on that. I just know we have a lot of other items on our agenda. But I think that was great discussion. Katie, thank you for keeping us consistent across all areas of expenditure. Bill, good suggestion as a way to take that. It sounds like we'll see Caitlin again.
Yeah. I'll see you in November. So all right. Thank you, and I'll get that information for you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Caitlin. Ms. Myers-Pacla, overnight travel.
Yes, so this is a new possibility.
Yes.
And so before we went further with all of this, we wanted to bring this before the school committee for approval. This is a new proposal. When I arrived here 3 years ago, I'd had a conversation with the then senior class to say what are some things that you might like to do in addition to what you're already doing as far as your senior activities are concerned. And so we did add a cookout and a senior signing of the yearbook at that cookout, and said, if you want to take a trip or you want to do something, there's always a Six Flags or there's Canopy Lake. There's a variety of different things that we could possibly do just to kind of enhance their experiences. So that was kind of eye-opening for some of our seniors that year. And then last year's class had said, well, what about a senior trip? And I said, well, if you'd like to, we could do. And so we didn't get much further with it. There was some conversation, but in talking to the class officers, last year's juniors, they were very interested in the possibility of a class trip. Now, this isn't coming without some background to it. So my previous experience in Middleborough, they have been running a senior class trip to Florida over the April vacation time period for a number of years. So this was very nice that I could just go right down, make the phone call to the travel agency that has been with this and say, this is what we would be interested in doing, what can we do? And a part of this is the Grad Bash, which Universal does and Disneyland also does. And you may have heard of these in the past where they would be a one-day, you fly down in the afternoon, you do this at night, and you fly back the next morning. That's a lot, but it is that possibility of doing. So instead, in Middleborough, they had expanded it prior to me even being there, and it's been something that's been very popular with the students. So I'd said, okay, well, let's make that proposal to here. The juniors had said yes, they were interested. So for that, this year's seniors, in other words. So this is what we have. These are dates that are in for April vacation, but they're slide dates. So I also want to let you know that there's a music trip that is starting or will be with the April vacation. So we didn't want to crossover. So it's the dates were put in because the dates needed to be put in for the agency to be able to work with them and include one of the nights of the Grad Bash at Universal. Once I knew about this, we're going to slide it. But again, unless we had permission to go forward, then I didn't want to have the agency making a whole bunch of changes or to meet our needs if this wasn't going to become a reality for the students. So what we have essentially is you're going down on day one. And however we can adjust that date depending upon what we have for our students to go down. Spring Hill Suites, I have been online to, I haven't been to. It's a Marriott resort. It's a very nice place to be at, and some of you may be familiar with it. Day two is a day at Cocoa Beach. And if you're flipping over to the next page, what isn't in here that we have added that would go on to this day would be a visit to the Lone Cabbage Fish Camp, which is an airboat tour through Alligator Alley. And for the students to have an experience with that. It's Dave & Buster's that evening. There's a dinner buffet that goes along with it. Back to the hotel. Day three is Busch Gardens, so it's kind of Universal's our immediate place on here. I'm sorry. The day two, which I skipped over, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. It's to go to Cocoa Beach, and there's a resort of which we have day passes to it so the students can enjoy the beach, the pool, and other facilities that they have at that resort. So I apologize for that. Back then for Dave & Buster's. Day three would be a trip to Busch Gardens, and then downtown Disney that evening for dinner at Planet Hollywood. And then day 4 is a day at Wet and Wild, and make sure that they're putting on all of the, what's the stuff called there, the sunscreen, because it is a day there at Wet and Wild, to come back and then get ready for the pre-party at for Universal Studios. They're at Universal, it's only seniors, so these are just for seniors from around the country. And that goes until about 2 in the morning. They come back to the hotel. We have breakfast. There's pizza. It's hanging out at the hotel for the most part that day, getting ready that night to go to a Blue Man presentation, and then back home on that 6th day or after that 5th night that's on there. There's a lot of movement so that the students are on the bus going someplace. We have them going to another location, coming back. Not really a lot of downtime except for that day after they do the kind of the all-nighter, as it's known, at Universal. What I wanted to make sure of was that the cost would include breakfast, lunch, and dinners for the students. The only open one is that first day when we go down, because again, it would just depend upon what the time is for the flights. We're looking at right now at about $1,600. It depends upon the airfare, but it's all inclusive, and we're basing it on quads for students. There is a cost factor that is there with it. Airfares, as you know, are kind of all over the place, and that's probably the largest cost when it comes to this. So this is what we're looking at. There is a liability insurance that is in there because this is through a travel agency, so that's a part that would be included in on it. We're looking for this to be a school-sponsored trip, meaning that all school rules apply. And so students would be held accountable for actions should somebody make a wrong choice based upon what our handbook has to say about those particular rules. And so that's what we have.
What percentage in Middleborough would partake?
Middleborough's about the same size as here, and with a class, let's say, of 200, 220, usually somewhere in the 70 to 80. It would all depend upon the class, but that was pretty much the average of the number of students that would wind up going. And again, there's a lot of choices that are out there for students where there would be a music trip. Oftentimes there was a trip to Europe. You know, we have our London trip here. We have our exchange programs that students are participating in as well. So I don't want those to get lost in the shuffle of this, because that really, those are experiences too. I mean, yes, this is Florida. Yes, this is an experience. It's a class bonding for the students. But I think that there's the importance of those, and I want to make sure that those are going to be out there in the forefront. So it's a proposal.
So I have a couple questions.
Sure.
You bring up something very interesting. I'm going to just throw this out here. We talk about the music programs. We talk about the foreign exchange, the educational benefit. Can you share with us what the educational benefit would be for this?
Probably not. It's probably bonding mostly with
Okay.
students. It's also
Okay.
taking a look at, you're getting a look at an alligator alley, you're getting a look at another part of the country, you're getting a look at the coast. Yes, we live on the coast. Florida beaches are a little bit different than our own. So it's not taking kids out of school. We're not looking to remove them from classes, which is oftentimes we do have as a part of that educational piece of it. That
So
it
it would be
is
during
an
April
out of-
break? I'm
It's
sorry,
during
sorry.
April
Okay.
break, yes.
What kind of feedback have you solicited from parents about this concept?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
Steve? Will there be a nurse on tour or anything like that? Something to take care of the children should somebody get sick, stung?
If something should occur, we do have somebody who's on board. We haven't had a nurse travel with the other program, so we would handle whatever the situation is in that way. We have had a student who wound up doing a water slide, who happened to hit the bottom, cracked their head, and was off with one of the chaperones to the emergency room for stitches, and a decision was made by the family and by the parents that he could stay down. The doctor said that the person was fine, and so they opted to stay. But we left that up to the family.
Is that all right?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right. So regarding chaperones, they will be paying the same or adjusted for their adult age or whatever?
And
Or
part
are
of what
they
we do put in
covered?
is, yes, they're covered within the cost. If we're going to ask somebody to go down and be on 24-hour duty, that's usually how that is done.
What, I'm sorry, how
And
how is that
done with a
done?
lottery, or how are the chaperones chosen?
First come, first serve if they would like to go in. And we would also look, I would look at a ratio from males to females when it comes to
Okay.
that.
Thank you. And do we need to vote on this, or just vote it? Do we need to vote on it tonight? Here's why, and I'm not very bright, but I couldn't find Hirsch Travel Source on the web or Coast Tours.
Oh, I'll be glad to give you any number
Thank
if
you,
you would like
because
that.
I don't want to
Sure.
start shoveling money towards
No,
somebody.
no, no.
in escrow or out of escrow if they're not a solid company.
Diana, just to Steve's point, do you need, is there a timeliness of this decision?
There is. Part of this was to try to have this on the agenda in the fall, because they have to make those, they have to make the reservations both for, and again, if it isn't something that we can do, that's fine for this year, but they do need to make the reservations for Universal for the grad night. It's also the hotel. It's based upon if the hotel is available, the resort. If not, they go to another. And the airfares, because the airfares just continue to, you know, the closer we get to April vacation, particularly that vacation in Florida, the airfares continue to go up.
But potentially, if we wanted to think about this and come back in November, that's not a whole lot closer to April.
No, I would have to go back to them to ask them if they could hold for us.
Okay.
Just
Okay,
to clarify,
wanted
this
to-
is the
Which is
company you
fine.
used in Middleborough.
Yes, and it continues to be used and has been used for the last 10 years, probably.
Tina and then Katie.
You did say this is self-pay, so the
Yes,
students who are
it's
going would
self-pay.
be paying the entire
Yes.
cost themselves, okay. And then the chaperones, you envision parents, teachers?
Teachers.
Teachers, okay.
Again, if it's going to be a school-sponsored trip, that's who we're looking at is for that. And we've had all kinds of, my experience has been that there have been all kinds of other circumstances where in some cases we have taken a parent for a specific individual for specific reasons, or an ed assistant for a particular student.
Have you had any feedback from the teachers on this sort of thing, whether they'd be interested in
Yes.
go? Okay.
Yes, there are definitely teachers out there who are interested.
Katie?
Yeah, I have some real concerns about this, I'm gonna be honest.
That's okay.
One, the lack of the educational benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Two, we haven't heard from parents. This is very costly.
It is.
And it's gonna impact families.
Mhm.
Three, the timing, which is the vacation right before a senior graduates, and whether families are planning maybe the last year and they're gonna go on I don't know. To make this kind of decision without getting parental feedback when it's involving students going, I would really not feel comfortable about making a vote on this until really there was some kind of mechanism to find out about how parents feel about this.
I think that's a good point, but I think, when we discussed bringing this proposal, we wouldn't want to solicit parent input unless it was something the committee was going to consider. Because you could get people pretty excited about the opportunity for their seniors, or seniors excited about the opportunity, and then have it, voted down at this board. So I think if it's the will of the committee to continue to consider this, then I think that would be the good next step. Because, personally, I didn't want a surge of everybody getting all excited about this, and then it comes to here, and you feel the pressure to say, well, we're gonna have to say yes, because everybody's already talking about it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
Yeah,
we felt
okay.
this was the first step. I'll take that
Okay.
on me if you would have preferred the reverse. When Diana talked to me about it, we thought this would make the good first inroad. And I'd say, I did something like this in high school many years ago, went with chaperones, and we went to Germany, and it was nothing, I hate to say cultural about it, but there really wasn't. We went skiing, it was nice. And it was certainly one of my favorite memories. Amy.
Cruise with mine, there was nothing educational about the cruise.
She went on a
But
cruise
this
for
is
hers.
vacation. This is.
It's a bonding
bonding
memory
bonding.
experience.
And also,
we do have a lot of overnight trips, and we know that our students can be trusted with chaperones to do well on overnight trips, because we have plenty of evidence of that. And Amy's sixth grader left this morning for Nature's Classroom, which my niece and nephew who live in another town, not even hers, also do in sixth grade. They go for a week overnight to Nature's Classroom, and her daughter left this morning. So I think that it sounds,
You doing all right?
very different.
Doing just fine.
Yeah, she's doing just
My
fine.
daughter, who shares a room with her, is really fine.
So I think it just feels different because it isn't that strong, obviously, of an educational tie, but it is the type of thing that our kids do in other settings, which is travel to places much farther away than this, do well, boarding buses, unboarding buses, following the directions of their chaperones, staying to the rules. We have kids that go to 2 different countries and all over the place for music and follow the rules. So it just feels different because it's Florida.
Well, because of
because-
the, and because you're going to a different, you're going to a country, the point is or it's music or
Right,
whatever.
there's not the educational
this is, Busch
strength
Gardens,
there.
this is, this
I
is,
think the
this
pro-
is fun.
I agree.
I think the
like-
process, I think the process was right to bring it to us
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
I think asking us to vote on it tonight might be a little quick. I share Katie's concerns, and yet I'm the guy who earlier this evening said I appreciate all of the new experiences. So I just need a little time, personally.
No, that's fine.
I value your professional opinion, haven't done this before. I value the experience of a trip. I appreciate the fact that you are suggesting we consider it a school official trip, so school rules apply. I just am nervous about if anything ever happened, personally. So I'd probably just need a little bit of time.
That's
need to talk to
perfectly
a few
fine.
people in the community, need to get a little sense, which we can either do formally through parents or, but that's just, but to the process question, I think the process was right.
Okay. So I think you can certainly send it out to your parent listserv now, saying this is under discussion, and
Yes,
see
and
what-
just to let you know too, I mean, this isn't just if you did, and then this would just go out to students. I would never do that. We would never do that. There would be a parent information night regarding it.
Oh, of
You know,
course.
all of
Oh,
that,
of
all
course.
of that process
Yes.
would be followed. And I'll certainly, take the lead from all of you of whatever you would like for us to do. I will certainly work with the travel agency to see what we can do regarding the prices and what this movement might look like. And it may be that we just need to do more work with it this year, and it may not be available for seniors this year, but if that is something that it meets all of it,
I
that
think
we
we're
move for
probably only
next
talking
year.
about a couple weeks till the next
Yeah.
meeting. But Tina, go ahead.
And I apologize if this is a silly
No,
question, but
not at all.
is this like a field trip on steroids? Do parents have to sign a permission slip with
Yes.
the same
Yes,
liability
we would do
waivers
just
that
that we
we
would with
sign?
everything.
Okay. I assumed so, but
Yes.
it is a little bit out of the realm
Yes.
of the
It is.
usual.
If it's a
so.
school-sponsored event, which I would never do a trip outside of it being
Right.
school-supported and
Yeah.
school-sponsored, then yes, absolutely, all of the above applies as well.
Thank you.
So, Steve?
As we go forward and get more information, will there be any info on any students with disabilities and their accommodations?
I was just going to say that I have had that experience of students that needed accommodations going, and we needed to work through with that, and we were able to meet those accommodations
you.
for students, sure.
Thank you very much.
So I think we're coming close to consensus, but Bev?
One thing I like, Diana has brought us a program that has already for about 10 years proved successful, which means, A, they're dealing with reputable companies. B, out of 200 and 220 students, approximately only 70, perhaps 80 partake of that, which means it's not cutting into any other family decisions, plans, vacations, last April vacation together, or anything. It opens an opportunity for people that don't have otherwise something special to do. So it's not like it's a command performance. You've got to take everybody, whether they want to go or not, and you're ruining family plans. I mean, I've gone on plenty of family vacations that have nothing really to do anything with education except ski your heart out on the mountain, which I found very valuable. So, anyway,
I think in that regard, it's not really different from other trips that the high school sponsors, which is, if your family traditionally takes a February vacation, then you're not going to sign your child up for the London trip. 'cause
London
that's
trip,
when
right.
it typically takes. So I don't see that as any different. I do think, to your point, it is different that the educational cultural value, isn't in this, but it's a different purpose, so.
It's for a different purpose. I mean, if you're a French student and you want to go live with a French family and learn the culture and bring extra things back, it's a different kind of a program entirely. And it's on their own personal time during a vacation.
So I'd like to suggest we just think about this to the next meeting. And my question for the committee would be, do you prefer Diana do this formally, or do you prefer we do an informal with our own contacts around town and what we hear is feedback?
I think because they're addressing the junior class, the parents,
Seniors.
the present senior class, I would prefer having Diana expose it to them, introduce it to them properly with all the other concerns, rather than well, what do you think if? Because to me, that gets the worry barometer and gossip columns going. And I'm not interested in that kind of feedback.
You're also targeting the actual group that's going to be affected by this. So
right.
I agree. I
Okay.
think,
Mikkel, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to quickly say, I've been on trips overnight. I went to Canada last year with the music program, and I think it's a really good experience, and I think it offers kind of like a last bonding trip for the people that you might never see ever again in your entire life. People who aren't in the music program can't go to Washington D.C. or Canada, and people who can't afford a trip to Europe that can be very expensive. It's kind of like in the middle for kids who want to have that last kind of hurrah with their friends. That I just think it's
And it's so well organized.
Joe, did you have a comment?
This is all I hope. When I'm a senior next year, 2015, 2016, we do this trip.
You recommend it?
Yeah, I just want to go. I looked at the schedule. I just feel like I'm dying to go.
Well, we're not going to promote you a year, so you can't go. We're not letting you skip a grade. You have to wait.
So, are we going to still do this in my senior year? Like, say if it goes successful this
Let's
year?
wait and see what happens at the next meeting.
One step
But
at a time.
I think we need the answers from the target group.
So
Not
would
from
anyone like to make
hearsay
a
on the
motion?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa.
It's okay.
Melissa, sometimes you have to throw something at me.
But I'm not a senior this year. I'm a junior. But like, if the opportunity was there for like my friends and I next year, we would immediately jump on that. Like because like there's this like ratio that's like 88% after you graduate, you're never gonna see those like people ever again. And like I'm really like I don't know. I'm very friendly, so I love like saying hi to everyone in the halls, and it's going to be different when I'm not going to see them again, and I want to have that last hurrah, like have fun with all the people that I may never see again, and like I don't know, I'd be so for this trip. I'd definitely like go right on it.
Well, you guys have me swaying, in my opinion. I'm glad I don't have to make a motion, but I'll entertain a motion if anybody would like to make one.
I do want to make one little comment that's not necessarily true. I just went to a reunion and I saw all my high school friends and I've seen them. So just remember that you can
But
still
you don't
you
do
still
it
can have
occasion, but-
contact with them.
Yeah, but
Yes.
you don't
I only
do it
see them
in
every
the-
5 years.
in the same way. And I think it's extremely exciting and beautiful that the culture, the climate culture that we have created in Foxborough makes people want to reach out and enjoy this camaraderie and deepen it. It says a
If it
lot.
wasn't here, it wouldn't be being even put on the table.
That's right.
Truly.
It says a lot about what we do with our students.
So what kind of motion do you want?
Well, Diana has asked us to approve this trip.
Well, I thought we were going to have Diana get.
I haven't heard that
some-
motion yet.
Some information
Oh,
from
yeah.
her listserv and come back to us
Tina,
in
do you want to make some
2
kind of
weeks.
motion related to that? Because
And let her, please include her targeting the audience that
Senior.
needs this. Not the
Could be any
hearsay
senior
on
and
the
junior,
soccer
probably.
Could be
field.
senior and junior because they'll, if this goes forward, they'll be coming up soon. So that's probably a good idea.
So is that a motion, Tina, that
Yes.
and then we'll revisit this at the next
We
meeting?
revisit this at the next meeting after Diana.
And I think we could still
provides
pull it
us
off
with
for
more
this year's
information.
seniors under that timeline.
It's
We'll
2
see.
weeks,
I'll make sure
so
that we
yeah.
can do.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone want to second that?
Yeah, I will second that, but just with the comment. So what I would like to see is information on this, though, before, if possible, a couple of days beforehand.
In our
Because-
packet, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that,
Then we won't hold you as long at the next meeting.
It's okay.
Whatever
that's gonna be
feedback,
critical.
so whatever you're saying to make sure, whatever feedback Diana
Oh, yeah.
gets, you want it in the
I
packet.
don't want to hear it on the night, or I won't be able to make a vote.
I think,
I would agree with
I
that.
suspect if we had had a little better understanding of this ahead of time, we might have been able to act on it tonight. I don't think it was real clear, even though it was in our packet. I don't think it was real clear, or it wasn't clear to us what to think through. So I think that's just what we're doing now.
I agree, because we just started talking about it
Right.
last week, that this had come forward with students, asking if this is something that iSchool considers. So, yeah, I agree. All I knew was what was in the packet.
Great.
So
All
I
right.
think it's been a good discussion, and. Sure.
So we have a
Thank
motion
you.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
5-0.
Thanks, Diana.
Diana, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a feeling I know how we'll vote next meeting, but thank you.
I just say too, we had an awesome Spirit Week and homecoming this past week and this past weekend with a dance of 500 students. They had a fantastic time. It was fabulous. So I just have to put that little plug in for the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Well, now I know we're on to a shorter topic, MCAS results.
Well, I'll just turn it right over to Amy, and as you know, while she's getting ready, Amy always does this presentation in 2 parts, which we've done historically for many years, which seems to work out well. That she's going to do the broad overview tonight, and when she comes back at the next meeting, she'll do the more in-depth analysis, and some of our curriculum directors and department heads will be here for that part as well.
So Amy, in all seriousness, don't go any faster than you want to, because this is important. At the same time, because we've been through how well you summarize and then we have the part two, if you don't want to cover every point on every slide, use your judgment. But again, don't feel rushed. This is an important topic. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Okay.
So just to kind of give the big picture, and then I'll summarize at the end. I think that what you'll see from the packet, as well as the slides, I've taken the information that you have in a multitude of tables and represented it visually through graphs. So I'm going to go through some of those slides. We've really seen little change in the area of English language arts across the district, not unlike the state as well. And then in math, we've seen some really great growth that we're really encouraging and excited about.
And is that consistent with the state too?
No, we're actually widening that gap between the state.
Right. Thank you.
Which I think is exciting.
So this graph here, the summary table that you have in the beginning of your packet is this in graph form, and this is looking at all of our grades for MCAS, the 17 tests that are given for ELA and math. And what you can see here is that the percent of advanced proficient, so our students that are proficient in ELA, has been pretty much unchanged when we look at those numbers across. We see for the last 5 years, typically 78% of our students that are proficient, and then in math we had further to go, and you see an incline over the last 5 years as we've now moved math to the same area of proficiency as ELA. When we look at each of the grades, so you have in your packet, whether it's one of the grades that's been tested for a much longer period of time, meaning grades 4, 7, and 10, we actually have 14 years worth of data that you have in your packet, and for the other grades, we have 9 years worth of data. So what I did a little bit differently this year was to take each of the grades and look at the last 5 years instead of looking at, it gets a little bit unwieldy on the graph itself if you take the 14 years or even the 9 years. Let's look at the last 5 years and see where we've been and where we've come. And I broke that down by grade level, but I also went ahead and added the state line there too, because I wanted you to be able to see, is our trend consistent with the state? And as you look at grade 3 reading, it's very much consistent with the state. We still have a gap of 10% where we outperform the state. When we look at grade 4, the trend line is pretty much similar. It's not changed a lot in the area of proficiency in grade 3 and 4. When we look at math, you can look at the gap there from us again compared to that state trend line. So you see improvement with the state, but where we have made higher gains in math. And a lot of resources in curriculum development and instructional pedagogy with professional development has been put into math, supplemental resources that you've supported here with the curriculum work and with our math review that we've had. So we're seeing some gains there. In grade 4, as an ELA, we also see in math, and it's again across the state, what we refer to as the grade 4 dip. So we typically see a dip there. The test is different in grade 4 with an ELA as an example with the long comp writing piece. But overall, the trend line is not really that different. Moving to grade 5 and 6 in ELA, excuse me, again, same pretty much as last year. Our percentages of students scoring advanced has increased by 14% in the last 5 years, so we're seeing increases in where we're moving students within that area of proficiency. And in grade 6, again, little change, but we're seeing the movements of students moving into the advanced. So that average has been 17% in the last 5 years. As far as grade 5 as well, the gap there is not as much in grade 5 as it is within other grades. And we talk a lot about that, and you'll hear more when we do the more in-depth analysis piece. But obviously we have conversations that look at the design of the test, what students are being asked to do. We talk about the transition of all of our 4th graders moving to 5th grade and having 3 different schools. So there's a lot of things that we look at, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the part 2 of the analysis piece. In math, if you look at the line for grade 5 in particular here, you see a 20% gap in proficiency when we look at the state. But more importantly, if you look from just 5 years ago, where we had 49% of our students proficient, and we're at 81% there. So that is something really to highlight, and the work that teachers have been doing from a curriculum and an instruction standpoint, and the support that they're receiving, whether it's through math specialists at the elementary and middle school, and that work, it really is cumulative as it takes place
That's
over
outstanding.
time. Steve?
I also see in your more granular stuff, we have our needs improvement scores to our favor dropped by 10 students, something like that? From
Yes.
14, from last year it was 25, this year it's 14. So that's a pretty giant improvement as
So
well.
we're moving them from needs improvement into proficiency, but we're
Right.
also then improving the number of students scoring proficient into advanced, and you see that.
Okay,
But
thank you.
also, there are far few people, which I was excited about, there are far few people under the category of warning. I mean, we're down to 1 and 2. That's incredible. And that's the support that they're getting from us. And thank you to all the parents in town who support the school's programs. But to me, that's an exciting.
So we see those really nice gains in the achievement, and then I have some slides here that will look a little bit afterwards at the growth, but we're seeing both. So when we talk about, if you're looking at achievement, we also want to look at growth and to see how they connect with each other. And we've seen the highest growth to date at the middle school grades in math as well, with not just the typical growth as we'll see later, but really the really high growth that's here. So at grades 7 and 8, over the course of the last 5 years, you can see increases there as well. If you look at grade 7, 84% of our students at the proficiency advanced, and then 90% of our students in grade 8. And when, in particular with grade 8, so to have 90% of your students proficient and advanced, that's something that, you know, we're really proud of. But at the same time, when we look at our percent of our growth for students at grade 8, that really pushes us up. And not to get into numbers, but I know that 8th grade in particular was ranked 17th in the state for their growth percentile.
For mathematics.
For mathematics. Thank you for that. I didn't move the slide forward. So looking at the difference there, it's quite a gap when you see the amount.
That's the kind of gap we want to have.
That's the kind of gap we want to have.
Yeah, gap's not a good word. Gap sounds negative.
I
It needs to
was
be,
thinking the same thing.
Delta.
When you said, like, on the 5th grade
Improvement.
slide, there's a 20-point gap, that sounds like a deficit.
20
Oh, then I'll reword
20
that,
point
because it's a
improvement.
20% increase
Improvement.
as far as.
Or
yes.
20%, it's, what's the word that means, like, way better? A gap that's way better than most people.
Opposite of deficit, you mean?
Yes.
In a way?
We'll figure that out.
Okay. It's nice.
We'll put Diane on it.
I just showed that I couldn't add about 3 agenda items ago, so we'll skip the ELA for the school committee tonight.
Gains? Gains?
Gains.
20.
Yes,
Yeah,
gains.
good. Good
That
word.
works.
Gains.
So in
Like, if 20% more of our students are in proficient and advanced than there are at the state, it's a difference, but it's a better difference. See, gap, sort of, the same thing, when you hear gap, you think that we have a gap, which is usually a negative, like an
Yeah.
achievement gap.
Yeah.
But we have a 20, it's not a gain, because our kids didn't gain over other people. It's many more of our kids are doing better.
Right.
A lot more.
There's your homework assignment for tonight.
I need a
So
thesaurus or something.
22% of our students are scoring higher than the state.
Yes.
In grade 7.
Perfect.
Right? And then if we look with, 30 more in grade 8, looking at the grade 8 scores, and then when we look at our growth percentile in grade 8, it's at our highest to date as well.
Those are good. Those are
You like
good
that
middle school
trajectory?
math slides, Mrs. Abrams.
And a lot of work has been really, we focused a lot on math. Obviously, we focus on everything, but when we look at where we had further to go in math versus ELA, we have a new math program for grades 6, 7, and 8 that we implemented last year. It's not a program. It is the resources that teachers use, but they've also some of the supplemental resources to really meet the new standards. And I think it really speaks to us being fully aligned to the new standards with which this is testing.
And more professional development and more structures that they've created within the middle school to both support and challenge students.
Absolutely.
All of that together.
And Debbie, I would agree with all that. And I think within the classroom, they're also doing those mini assessments, so they're going back and
Yes.
reviewing. And I think that, I think we're seeing some really good results in that area, partially because of that. They're not
Yes.
just continuing to go, and the kids are being tested on exactly what they're doing. They're reviewing so that they know they have the underlying concepts, and I think we're seeing the results. I really do. Just my opinion.
Many factors that contribute to that.
Absolutely.
Some of them, progressive from the students who enter the grades with the skills that they have coming up.
Actually, probably like to hear all of those factors explained at the next meeting when they get into in-depth analysis. And you. Well, you're the one who first started talking about all any assessments and flex time and all the other things that are happening.
So, like, for instance, looking at grade 8 there with that 28% increase of our students outperforming the state, out of that 80% there, 38% of them scored advanced.
Oh.
And the growth percentile there, where we talk about between 40 and 59 is typical years worth of growth, 60 or anything higher is considered high growth. Well, this is at the highest growth of 81.5.
Excellent.
In grade 10, we have consistently done very well. We know that it's a graduation requirement, so it's very important to students to do well. So when we look at ELA, 96% as compared to the state being at 90%. So we have an increase of outperforming there, but we've also continued that trajectory. Although slight, it's hard when you're reaching the ceiling there to continue to increase. And then with math, slight increases over the last 5 years. Looking at science, it's a very different graph when you look at that information for grades 5 and 8. A lot of the conversation we've had here in the past has been, we look at, for instance, it's the standards for grades 3 to 5, and you get to pick and choose what you're going to have in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. So by the time you're tested in 5th grade, it's all of those standards from 3rd, and depending on when they had exposure to those standards, makes a big difference as far as the test. Same is true for 8th grade. We'll continue with the science MCAS at this time, even though we will be piloting PARC next year because there's not a science test. But we have our K-12 science curriculum review that's taking place right now, and new standards are coming out for science, and they will be grade specific. And it'll be more to an integrated approach at the middle school. So there's a lot more to come in that area, but we'll see how that lays out in the future as far as MCAS, but we're very happy that it's going to be grade specific and not grade span, where it's really left up to the districts to decide which standards are emphasized in which grade levels. But if you look at the trend lines there with the state, not too far off as far as we look at our trend lines, but a very different kind of trajectory than we see in ELA and math. And then in grade 10, or actually grade 9 for some students, it depends on when they take biology, and it is a graduation requirement as well. 80% of our students proficient or advanced, and that has been pretty consistent over the last 5 years, other than the dip there a couple of years ago. This is just a summary of looking at all of the grades for the last 3 years to see from grade 4 through grade 10. Really, other than grade 4, there's improvement over the last 3 years in each of the grades. And that grade 4 dip that we see, it's not just us. It's something that you see across all districts and the state as well. This is the district growth for ELA, so for all grades, and that big circle that you see above the X is Foxborough, and we want to be in that top right-hand quadrant to show that we have high achievement and that we have high growth. So we're really straddling the line there when you look at all grades, but when you look at individual grades, you can see a little bit different picture, and grade 4 and 5 in ELA, which kind of talked about the scores there, that's where you don't see as high of growth or as high achievement. But for the other grades, it's either straddling the line or they're in that right-hand quadrant where we would like to see performance.
Amy, excuse me, is it right to read those charts that the higher the achievement, the harder it is for high growth?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. So you want to be within that middle band between, well, you like to be high growth, but the 40 to 60 is the typical or a year's worth of growth. But again, as you're pushing that ceiling for achievement, it's much harder.
So we don't necessarily want to go to the right. It's impossible to go too far to the right once you get up pretty high, right?
It's harder. I mean, just as a for parents that are out there as a concrete example, all children are very different. I have 4 at home that all take MCAS, so I see it very differently. And my children are very different when I look at one who achieves at a very high level. The growth percent was 3. They had a 3% growth, but the achievement was very, very high. As opposed to one of my other children who I looked at from last year to this year, the first thing I looked at was the growth percentile, because I knew where they were from an achievement level, and I wanted to see, more importantly, what had happened during that year in that particular grade and what had happened with that teacher or teachers over the course of years. So the growth percentile was much more important to me.
Do they get scared when you come in for parent-teacher
Yeah.
conferences? Your children? Sorry. I'm thinking, oh boy, you're going to ask all the right questions.
Cards with the lawyers, with the wheels on it, they bring in.
I think more than anything, but I think it's a really good question though, because of having the background knowledge. Somebody might see 3% growth and think, what have you done for my child this year? Where having the knowledge and understanding that the high achievement, to Bruce, to your point, it really is important to understand both and to know when it's important to look at one versus the other, or to look at them in tandem.
Right.
So all of our areas for ELA are in the high achievement, above the line, as we say in layman's terms. And the fact that for the most part we're in at least average growth is good.
Absolutely.
Right.
So this is just a different snapshot to look at that, as far as to kind of look at the 3 years, the last 3 years that we've had the growth percentile scores, because it's been 3 years now, and to see that typical growth again, which is that blue line for this past school year, is within, other than our grade 5 in ELA, is within the typical growth area. It gets a little bit slicing and dicing to look at it different ways to really try to get a good understanding. So there's probably more slides than we need, but I think it's helpful to look at it, at least from our side, on the school side, in different ways. And that's just showing that band of 40 to 60. That's just a summary of both, to see the achievement versus the growth, and again, to reiterate, it's important to look at both. In math, across the grades, you see that blue line, which is 2014, and those nice increases in achievement across all grades there. When we look at the growth there, you can see that it's in a different spot than we were with ELA. We had further to go, but again, with the high achievement and the growth in that area for all grades. And this is the same one for broken down by grade level, and what's circled there, and I had circled that in your packet too, is really just to point out that for grades 6, 7, and 8, we're above 60 is high growth. And it's not that we had low achievement. We had good achievement, but then significant growth in those areas, with a 75% growth percentile for grade 6, 68% for 7, and then 81.5 for grade 8. And I think that with grade 8, it's really significant in that there was a big decision with the Common Core State Standards coming in with our standards, And with algebra, where so many people were accustomed to algebra being a big part of grade 8, and there were so many more standards that were brought into the middle school and that realignment, that to see that played out here from a curriculum and instruction side, we were very happy to see that.
So I think that's a good spot actually to stop and make a note, because there's so much in the media now, and a lot of it is political, about people should be afraid of the Common Core, or why are people going to the Common Core. For us in Massachusetts, it's just a slight shift, slight or great shift in some of the standards, because Massachusetts always is at the forefront of having high standards. And for us, it was just a shift to another set of standards that Massachusetts did customize to our own state. So we realigned to the Common Core a couple of years ago. And so that it isn't, right now, it seems to be a lot in the media, which to me is about 4 years too late for people getting all hepped up about the Common Core, because we shifted years ago to those kinds of standards, and you can see the results. So it's not really anything to be afraid of. It's just a different set of standards that are now more national, which we actually welcome, because each state before had their own set of standards that may or may not have calibrated. And now we're going to be able to see how Massachusetts does with a similar set of standards against several other states. So for us, it was never that political hot potato that for some people it can be, that we should be afraid of the Common Core, because this is our own state MCAS. It's not the national test yet. And you can see that our students have had pretty good growth results as a result of that realignment.
Can I ask you a related question?
Yes.
So the question isn't Common Core then. Is the question, with us doing so well using MCAS, does it make us rethink or even think for a minute about why Park?
No, because the Park is an answer to the Common Core shift. And so whether they, as we've discussed, whether our state goes Park or stays MCAS, the test itself is going to shift anyway. So it's going to shift toward the types of demands that Common Core makes, which is a lot of students applying their knowledge rather than just knowing things. So it's more application of what are you going to do with it, and that's where the college and career readiness concept comes in.
Okay.
So, but you know, I just think that there's been a lot of rhetoric about Common Core, and for us, it's just a shift in the standards that happens, quite honestly, every several years, regardless of if we ever heard of Common Core or not. Our state has shifted standards and emphases within standards every once in a while over the years, depending on what area they've been looking at.
I think the Park is more applicable to what they're doing in the classroom.
Yes, it's more the way that students are expected to learn, know, and apply. It's not enough to know and be able to do. It's know, do, and apply it.
And it's just
a better explanation.
No, and I just
please?
think the thinking that's involved too, where you have things not just multiple choice, it's multi-select.
Yeah.
Looking at a number of different ways. When we talk about in mathematics, explain your thinking in different ways. There will be more than one answer because it's showing their thinking in different ways and really being able to reflect on that and look at that other than one multiple choice answer.
Right. Just like and that's why it's related to college and career readiness, because when you go into the workforce, you're going to have to think, you have to work in teams, you're going to have to think about what you need to do, pitch your idea, decide what's the best way to go about accomplishing something, no matter what your field is, and that's really what they're going to be asked to do more and more.
Okay.
So that's looking over the last 3 years like the ELA one before, but looking in math, and you can see that the last 3 years, this 2014, the growth exceeded in all grade levels other than grade 4. But again, typical growth in grade 4. We just had a big difference in growth in the other grade levels. So to summarize, out of the 17 tests, not surprising, we've done this for a number of years now. We've outperformed the state, but I think that as we've seen in math, the percent that we've outperformed the state has been much more significant in the last year. In ELA for grade 10, we consistently we're very strong and do well. 96% of our students scoring advanced in ELA and 88% in math, and then also in science as well. In English language arts, our highest achievement continues to be at grade 8 and 10, and our highest growth is at grades 6 and 7. And I bring that up because I think about if we're talking about both, if our highest achievement's at 8 and 10, it's not just what happens in 8th grade or what just happens in 10th grade. So if your highest growth is coming in the grades preceding it,
Sure.
they really work hand in hand with each other. And that it's been fairly consistent, although we've seen little change over the last number of years. But as you saw from those trajectories, very much the same trend line has been across the state. It's not just here with us. The growth has been typical for grades 4, 6 through 8, and 10, but grade 5 has been in the last couple of years a lower growth percentile than the other grades. In math, the greatest performance, grades 3, then that 4th grade dip, as I mentioned before, 5 through 8, and then 10, although we did see an increase in number of our students scoring, also advanced in grades 5 through 7. The math performance continues to rise with steady increases over the last several years, and then in grade 3, that's increased by 19% in the last 3 years. Math performance, not to reread those slides there, but again, that high growth that we saw before. In science, we are exceeding the state, as you saw in those kind of funky lines, if you will. But our grade 8 has improved since last year by 8%, and then our science is strong. With the majority of our students, they're performing at the advanced level. So we look at 88% of them scoring proficient advanced, but 61% of them are scoring advanced. And then just some reminders that I thought would be helpful where we are kind of in a transition this year. MCAS will continue for grades 5, 8, and 10 in science since there's not a park for science. It is still a graduation requirement for grade 10, so our 10th graders will be taking ELA math and science this school year. But we will be piloting park, and that's a 2-part march in May for grades 3 through 11. And then the plan is for our middle school and high school students to pilot the park on the computer online, and our 3rd and 4th graders will be piloting using the paper and pencil.
It's a very good overview. Very exciting.
You know, we're happy with what we're seeing, but more importantly, I think we're happy with what we're seeing in the classrooms and what the kids are doing, because you're seeing kind of the fruits of your labor and all of the professional development. I mean, all the way down to working with our educational assistants through professional development days on math content. They've asked for math content professional development. We've been providing that for them over the last several years, looking at how they can best support teachers in the classroom in content areas. So it's been from the professional development part, it has been from the resources that we've put in to supplement where we needed to, and then the instruction and working, whether it's through professional learning communities, teachers working with each other, and just really everyone working together.
I just want to thank Amy. This was wonderful. I mean, as always, your presentation is clear, concise, easy to follow, so you did a great job.
Thank you.
I thought your PowerPoint
I'll
was
second that.
wonderful.
Yeah.
My only suggestion, I know the committee likes your raw data, which you have here. If we could get the PowerPoint in the packet, because the clarity in that PowerPoint, I think, was excellent and like superb. So
Well,
if you
we
get
got-
that in the packet, that's
we got
great.
2.
And then I also think for our media friends, sometimes getting that presentation is a little bit easier to understand than
all of the
everything we
tables
typically
of-
provide, which is all of our raw data, which we like to provide in the interest of transparency. But I think that that getting that PowerPoint in here in advance and also having it on the table for our guests would be great. Just
Well, maybe in anticipation right at the next time. It's right.
well, I'm saying that now because I'll forget for next fall. So if I say
Yeah,
it now, it'll
was
happen.
a great presentation of all the raw data.
Yes.
Because I looked at it, but it crystallizes it
Oh,
up
totally.
on the screen
Yeah.
for you. So thank you for all the graphs. It was great.
Wonderful.
As long as I can have the disclaimer that there might be that a slide changes slightly before the actual night, because I tend to slice and dice.
As in up till like 1 a.m. last night, this is what she does.
Yeah.
So yes, you can certainly
Yeah.
tweak, but I think the basic, to have the basic
information.
PowerPoint in there, it's
It's
so
not-
crystal clear.
It's not going to overly change between Thursday and Monday, is
No,
it?
no. And it is, there's so many, when you look at the 14 years worth of data in the chart, it's a lot to look at.
So I think that's helpful, and if
know,
anybody
this-
requests it, Certainly
happy
feel
to
free
give
to
it to
send
them.
it.
This alone took me hours.
I know we didn't talk about them tonight, but you did. I also thank you for the cohort presentations because they're interesting. At least as I know as a parent of a child or children, I have two who are going through the system. It is interesting to see how the different groups are performing over
it is.
time.
Mhm.
And
Oh, that's
I know we didn't
excellent.
go into them tonight, and that's okay.
I
But
had
thank you
that
for
there.
those slides.
There it is.
These guys.
This
Oh,
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I skipped right over it. But it does, and I think that kind of shows that it
helpful.
takes a village. It takes all of us over the course of years, and a lot of times elementary teachers don't see the benefit in the end, and it's really the foundation that they've provided.
And say with a thank you note.
I also think you can see the benefits of the different curriculum reviews and changes over time, and particularly in math. I think you're seeing the results, and it's really exciting, and it shows how hard you're all working to keep up to date and to continue to review and maintain best
I agree.
practices and the professional development.
I
But this
agree.
really, it crystallizes it, so thank you.
Yeah, and if you see the fruits of your labor, having good results for kids, it makes you want to continue working as hard as they have been, so thanks to all of our staff members. And then, before I forget, if you could put this presentation in the OneDrive for the admin team meeting, the next admin team meeting, that would be great.
Steve? Not to be a wet blanket, I love these numbers, they're great. I'm a father of a 15 and a 13-year-old. But what do we do down the road for the numbers with the needs improvements and failures? That's now the leaks in the hull. So we have a beautiful ship, but we have to go for these things. Are we going to discuss those maybe in part 2?
Sure, or Diana can address them right now.
And this
because
isn't like,
there
I'm
are
not
so
trying
many,
to,
they have
but
structures in
I'm
place.
an ugly baby guy. If there's an ugly baby, I want to talk about it.
No, that's fine. I mean, they have structures in place at both schools, but particularly, I'll just speak to the high school because it is a graduation requirement where there are academic tutors and there's MCAS remediation classes
Yep.
available, and that they keep going the extra mile so that everybody passes it as a graduation requirement. And we really haven't had a student over the past known years that I can remember that doesn't graduate from high school because of these tests. So, yes, there are some students who may not be great test takers that might need a little more review in a
I was
different
one of
way.
them. I was
Right, and
a
take it again,
horrible
but
test taker.
ultimately, they are all successful. So, that's really the end
And
story.
please don't, anybody out there in TV land, take it as an assault. It's not. I'm just saying it's a number, it's there, and
No, but they do pass, is what I'm saying to you. We have not had that. I've been back here 7 years. I don't think we've had that at all.
But one of the things that we do is we make sure that as soon as the data is available, and even when it's embargoed and we can't talk about it publicly, we can for instructional purposes. And so all of the teachers, with the kids sitting in front of them at that point, they know how they performed the previous year. So then we can look at those children to make sure that we're providing the supports in place so that they're successful in the future. So
And get
all-
started right away.
Right away.
Cool.
And now that I want to say
And that's important
compliments
to
to
know.
Amy and her team, all of our assessment data is in Pearson Inform, so it's all very accessible to everyone. I just had a conversation with an elementary principal this morning who said, every data that a principal would want to look at now is in Pearson Inform, and they can do their own analysis and don't have to chase after things in many different places. So that accessibility of the data that Amy and her team worked really hard on the last couple of years is really bearing even more fruit than we've had other years.
Thank you.
But I get excited, like in the cohort for 2014 in grade 8 in 2010 there were 11 that needs improvement, but by the time they got to the 10th grade there were only 4 that needs improvement. Not
And needs improvement is still
everybody's
passing,
perfect.
but it's not.
No,
I'm not
but that's a low number, and when you move from 5 to only 3 who need warning, 3 who need warning out of the entire class. And once in a while you come up with 1 that needs warning.
And then they have
Our
multiple
needs in-
opportunities to retake it with the proper supports, and like I said, they are ultimately successful.
But the
Kudos to our
lowest needs of
hardworking students.
improvement are in grade 10, and the lowest warnings are in grade 10 because of all of what they've done in the elementary school and the middle school and what they have done with freshmen and encouraging sophomores. So I think we should be pleased with that.
Yes.
I'm not,
Not
di-
react
Bev,
to it
I'm not
negatively.
displeased. I'm actually trying to get the message out, and Amy did it beautifully when she used the terminology with the embargo. They're already going to fight the fires before we even know about them in the organization and administration.
That's right.
But if we have the number 2 and we want to get it down to 1, somebody's running down the hallway with the hose to shoot the fire out, and that's fine with me. That's all I'm trying to get at. And if the number's 10,
And these are including all of our inclusion
I'm not going to use the word
kids
shoot.
and special needs.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
sorry.
Steve, these are special needs kids, inclusion kids. I mean, this is the entire population.
I know.
To have 2 people who needs improvement or 2 who need a warning, I mean, the statistics are amazing for Foxborough.
Great results.
thank you.
Amy, great job. Thank you very much. Can we dismiss our principals?
Well, I think they might want to get just a couple hours sleep before they do
Yeah.
a turnaround.
We want them carrying those hoses and putting out fires tomorrow, for heaven's sake, Florida's, right?
I think they might be thinking the same thing. Do you have
Yeah,
homework?
I think students
Feel free,
need-
if you ever have like demanding amounts of homework as you do every night, to leave when you must.
Bye, guys.
I wanted to say thank you to the girls for all their input tonight, because everything you
Yeah,
had
they're
to say
great.
was really, really helpful.
You are really
Thank you
great
so much
student
for your
reps.
input.
Thank you.
You are really great. Thank you.
Go get your homework done now.
Good night. Thanks, Amy. That was cool.
All right, we're going to begin a discussion about the possibility of the town and school sharing some maintenance responsibilities.
So I'll turn it over to Mr. Yukna, but this is very similar to what you know, where we share the technology oversight, where the director of technology is responsible for both schools and town. And this is a similar proposal for oversight, so I'll turn it over to Bill.
A lot of it comes because obviously the schools are recognized for the maintenance program that we have had for years. Back to when Mike O'Leary took over, I think made some significant changes in the way we looked at our buildings and the long-term structures. Maintenance is everything. So what's obviously happening now is, as the town side is trying to update their facilities, one of the biggest deficits they've had is the fact that they don't have any type of a maintenance program for the individual buildings. And what's happened is department heads who are fighting fires, putting people in jail type of thing, are now being responsible for also managing their buildings, which is not what their forte is. So it does make a lot of sense. The preliminary discussions we've had, basically, as Deb said, very similar to the IT, where they would have to support the process just like they do with IT. We maintain 2 separate budgets, just like we have with IT. Our expenses, our staffing requirements, they would supplement with staffing and have their own expense lines and budgets. But it would put together a total program for the town. And it would also leverage at times, just one of the major reasons that the IT side works so well is they had, when they did have an IT department, it was a 1-person department. And if you're doing a major deployment, like this summer when we did Windows 7 for the town hall, you don't put 1 person in town hall. We were able to flex and actually put 2 and 3 people down there to do projects, and then flex them back into our side as we needed them. So same thing would happen on maintenance. To be honest with you, it would be very much of an unsafe situation if they were to hire 1 maintenance person on the town side and expect them to go out on projects. We typically, when we're doing projects throughout the district, we'll have 2 guys working together. If it's a project with ladders, a project with electricity, a project with anything like that, just so that we're safe. So they wouldn't even have that ability unless they were willing to hire a much bigger crew than what we think they really need. We also are the highest demand. Let's face it, we have 550,000 square feet that we maintain. 3,000 kids going through those buildings every day for 180 days out of the year. Our staff and so on. So we actually have the program down probably better than they would over a longer period of time. It would work similarly to the way it does as far as IT, where IT basically has a dotted line to myself and to Randy up at the town hall, the finance director. The maintenance side would have a similar type of a process, dotted line. And that just basically gives both sides the ability to talk directly when you have an issue. But just like on IT right now, if there's a major issue, Randy, myself, and Aaron get together and just so that we all understand what the requirements are and what the needs are. And that's worked out very well. So I think this is it's a good process for the town. We are a member of the town. We are, something that should be able to support that as well. And they are willing to support the financial, ramifications for some changes that they'll have to make on their side to make this work. And again, it's a different management philosophy than they've had. It used to be just build it and then let's see what happens in years down the road. And we don't do that, and so I don't think they want to as well. So what the actual discussion should be for you to start to think about is, A, if you're comfortable with this structure similar to the IT, and then what we were hoping to have is the joint meeting with both the Board of Selectmen and yourselves to kind of just discuss it further and put everything on the table to make sure everybody's in agreement. But again, I really see this, Randy and I have talked about this a little bit more in depth as far as how we would do the budgeting. We do, as you see with our own operations, we have an operations budget. So we have all of our utilities, all of our subcontractor costs, all of that in different lines that we manage and maintain. And I've suggested that they do the similar thing where they stop having it spread across all of their buildings and it kind of gets lost, and bring it back into a similar one line on their side, not one line, but multiple lines in one operations budget. So that basically that gives you the ability to, just like we do, if we have to swing and sway within our budget year and say, I got to do more work at the high school this year versus more work at a Taylor next year, I'm using my monies to basically deal with that. So, and Randy's, definitely for that. But because we're trying to come into the budget process time, and this would be something for FY16, which is next year, obviously we need to have these discussions now so that everybody can appropriately budget and plan for how this would move forward.
I have a question. How do the various department heads feel about this within the town?
They love it.
Yeah.
Well, Tony's going over there now.
Yeah, what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
I just jumped right in.
Yeah. No, what we've been doing for the last couple of years, since I came on, was really working with the town departments to help them in the issues. Because quite honestly, as much as they try to do it, they really don't have the knowledge that someone like Tony has. I mean, he's excellent when it comes to a lot of the mechanical things. And so when the library has a brand new system that they have absolutely no clue how it operates, a quick call and Tony, one of the guys, will go over and kind of explain it to it, fix it, get it going. They're over at Joint Public Safety on a regular basis. We've been keeping track of it because one of the things I wanted to do was see how much time we are putting in it. It hasn't been, enormous, but there has been, time that was involved, which will also help us in the budgeting process for what they need to support going forward. So, again, I kind of look at this as one town. We're one group of taxpayers. We all have the same common goal, which is to protect the assets we have within the town. It is coming, and we are spending a few dollars as far as our labor in the sense here, but the way, again, I look at it is the town supporting us in the budget process. So, both sides benefit in the long run if we can get this to work properly. And if you do it right, like we've done, I think, on the IT side, you save money. And that's kind of the end result that gives us all.
I was going to say, that's the bottom line, right? We want to do.
I have another question, Mr. Chair. How would the hiring work? Would Tony still be in charge of hiring people? And if we needed more people, would he still have control? You still have control on the hiring side of those things?
Just like we do with the IT, all staff is hired by the director of that operation. So again, training, the whole process is basically the same. Somewhat of the advantage even to the school side is at certain times we could even flex that whatever additional people back into our side if we need to on a bigger project, just like we can flex back out to their side. So there's definitely a positive to both sides of that.
You may have said this is not custodial though, it's maintenance.
Right.
So basically everyone would reside here as they do in IT and serve the town as needed. So this is a proposal that you'll be discussing with the Board of Selectmen as a joint interest. And we're hoping for that same evening when the budget forecast happens with the two boards, correct?
And I have some dates to share with you guys to see what works well for you, that you can either respond now or get back to me if you'd like. But I've been in touch with the chair of the Board of Selectmen, and we have a couple of options for your consideration. One is that we could meet with them on November 25th. I think I shared that with you all, and there was a concern raised that that's Thanksgiving week and it might be difficult. Another option, second option, would be to meet on November 10th, which is a Monday. Now, currently, we have meetings on the 3rd and the 17th, but you'll recall the 17th is a conflict with town meeting. So we might consider, with your approval, moving our November meetings of the 3rd and the 17th instead, cancel those, move to the 10th. Have the Board of Selectmen come here, join us. We could have the first two agenda items be these two, the budget forecast and also this notion of a joint maintenance oversight. The two things to think about with that are, number one, it would probably be a long evening with the rest of our business.
We've got a lot going on.
And the second thing is, it is the day before a non-school day on Tuesday.
That's all right.
I'll be out of town.
On the 10th?
Yep.
Okay.
What day of the week is the 25th?
Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday. So if we went with the 25th, we could maintain our November 3rd meeting. We would not have a 17th meeting, and then we would have the 25th to cover these two items and additional school committee traditional.
I don't think I can do the 25th.
was in the mix. I thought you'd ask me about the 10th. So the
25th
25th,
That's not
You
going
were
to work for
available,
me.
well, you were, I think you were.
I thought you asked me about the 10th.
isn't going to work for,
I might have.
No.
I am available. I just happen, Thanksgiving's my holiday, so there happens
Yeah,
to be both.
I'm off that week,
But I
too.
could do it. Yeah, I could, if it's not the really long meeting, because we do have some agenda items that if you just, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you just said if we kept the 3rd for a regular meeting and did that just for the two joint things, that would be doable.
I'm open to anything, and I know nothing, it's hard whenever we make a change to our calendar, because we've all blocked the dates. I know it's hard. My concern, of course, is that we get a quorum, and then secondly, we get as many people as possible.
I think we need to keep the 3rd because now we've bumped a couple issues that are time sensitive, particularly the senior trip thing, to be discussed on the 3rd. So I would prefer that we keep that date for the material that we've covered, plus we've got the next MCAS discussion. There's a lot going on that night. I don't
can
know.
the selectmen meet the 3rd?
No.
So our choices are the 3rd.
The choice on the table so far,
No, it
unless,
can't be the 3rd. The 10th?
are
or
the 25th or the 10th, are the two discussions we've had so far.
The only thing
Okay, I
I'll tell
can't
you,
do the 25th,
if it
so the
goes
10th
much,
would be my choice.
if it goes
Oh.
much beyond that, the revenue forecast really is what we're basing our budget spend on. And we have to complete a budget by
Right.
early December, so.
The 25th is not good.
Sounds like a lot of people have a conflict with the 25th. It is close to Thanksgiving. We could do, we could keep our meeting on the 3rd and have the meeting on the 10th. You could have two Mondays back to back.
No, I really wanted to be at that meeting, but if I'm out of town, I'm out of town.
I know, Steve, I feel your pain. I can understand it. Okay, I won't finalize anything until end of day tomorrow at the earliest. That way people can review calendars, think about it. If you have other ideas, come back to me. It is hard, obviously, coordinating both bodies. And they've assured me they
And
can.
with an extra meeting, one of the 5 of us probably will not be there.
Well,
Just when you do that.
Yeah. No, it's hard. Okay, so let's not make a decision tonight. We don't need to make a decision tonight.
That's fine.
So
I'll go
will we
with
do
whatever the
this?
committee
Well,
decides. Just a quick
well-
question. So you'll know by the end of the day tomorrow, only because there's an agenda item for our meeting, regular meeting, that involves the YMCA folks. I tentatively said the 3rd, but that I wasn't sure. So we'll know by the end of the day tomorrow, because they will need there's a new YMCA proposal that they're gonna be coming to you with, a new partnership, as if we don't have enough already, with the wonderful
If they
Events
want
of
to partner
Foxborough
with us-
YMCA, but there'll be a new one coming, so as long as I could give them some lead time on the exact date
Will
of the.
Janet email us then as a reminder tomorrow and respond to her what our best date is after we look at all our calendars at home?
Sure, you can either respond to her, or you can send me a note, just one-on-one.
Separately, all right.
But we are planning to stick with the date of the 3rd for our next school
Well,
committee.
well, we committed it to Diana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Well,
I mean,
that's
I
just
can
it.
certainly, communicate that to her
I
another
think
time.
as of right now, yes. I mean, I agree with your point, Tina, so. So I like with the spring trip discussion, which was new, this is new to all of you. So why don't I give you a night to sleep on it and a day tomorrow to think about it? And then I think for some of the reasons mentioned, we probably do need to make a decision.
Then
So-
my only further thought is if one of the options is to have the only meeting on the 25th, it would be really hard to have so many of our staff members here for that Tuesday before Thanksgiving for the MCAS analysis. For, you know, you know what I mean?
I thought we were talking about a joint meeting on
Well,
the 25th.
I just thought,
'cause that's
I'm
a
not sure what
Tuesday. That
options are
would-
still on the table, so I just want to make that point. If
Yeah.
that were the only meeting of
Well, it's
November, I think that'd be really.
conferences, so I
Oh,
don't know
okay,
how our
okay.
staff could be.
Yeah.
Well, they really couldn't.
And I wasn't, Debbie, I wasn't.
I'm not even sure I can be here on the 25th.
I
for
wasn't
that reason.
proposing the only meeting be the 25th.
Okay.
I was proposing the only meeting could be the 10th.
Thank you.
No, the 25th is too hard.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
Could we, I'm just looking at squares in a calendar now at this point. Could we do a November 3rd meeting where we're the school committee? And then a November 5th when we're the joint? So it'd be a Monday and a Wednesday night.
Well, now, I can ask,
Because that's everybody being at 2 meetings in 1 week.
I can ask, that was not one of the dates that the chair of the
I'm
Board
just
of
throwing it
Selectmen
out
said
to
was-
try to keep things up towards the
Right,
top
a
of the month.
different day, like a Wednesday.
You know?
I
Wouldn't it
probably,
conflict
I
with the-
probably can't do that Wednesday. You're gonna write, when you're changing days and adding extra meetings, one of the 5 of us are not going to be at whatever we arrange.
I'll be honest, I'm probably going to be in Orlando. I'm going to be in Orlando on the 10th. Not the senior class.
Is it
me.
educational?
I'm going to be checking
Maybe you
out
could
the
just-
senior
is
trip
it-
stuff.
do
I'll
it-
I'll
scout. Maybe you
Instagram
could
the
be a
senior
scout.
class.
I
Is it
feel, I'm
gonna be
feeling for your
educational?
chair right now because I know how difficult it is to get a meeting date from 2 boards, and I know you've been working really hard
Yeah.
on that for a couple of weeks with what are the possible dates for 2 boards. So I'm just feeling for you right now, and you'll just let me know.
Yes, but when you change and add, not everybody from both boards are going to be there. So, and
Yeah,
you have to be realistic about these.
what I'm
changes.
walking away from tonight is with the impression that keeping the meeting on the 3rd and then having a joint meeting on the 10th is the least conflicts. But if, again, let me give you guys a night and a day.
I'm trying to be helpful. The 5th is MASC conference, so we'll be there.
Oh, right.
Okay, then I have a suggestion.
That's off the table.
That other Wednesday, which is, not the, or you, oh no.
12th?
The 12th, that wouldn't work either, huh, for you?
I'll be in Orlando and
Okay.
not with the seniors.
Oh, okay, what about the 19th? Monday is town meeting, the 17th? What about Wednesday, the 19th?
Wednesdays, I
I
can't
could
do
do that.
it.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm just throwing out a,
Yeah.
okay.
Why don't
So
you know
we'll-
what? I'll. Why don't you just shoot for the 10th, and you got it, right? Everybody else can do the 10th, but me and
As of right now, but we can, again, new news, new information, sleep on it.
I'm good if
Somebody
you
else
go
may
with the
think of
10th.
some, somebody
I don't
else may
think we're
think
gonna
of something.
decide
Okay.
tonight,
Right,
so
but I'm
maybe
good
we
if you
should-
go with the 10th. It is what it is. Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll decide tomorrow, and Janet will let you all know. And that way, if anybody has any other thoughts, they can get them to me tomorrow. Thank you, everybody. Bill, anything else on that program?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, acceptance of donation?
Yes, I'll go first, and then Bill has one. So we actually have 2.
Excellent.
And again, an example of just the wonderful, generous community that we live in, that people are always coming forward with stuff that's good for the school. So I would love to start by announcing that Michelle Goronsky, who's a local parent, who runs the barn, if any of you are shoppers, as I am, and have been to the barn sale, through Mangicotti Incorporated, which is her company, she has donated 1,000 hand sanitizers to our schools. And so they just came in on Friday, and they're going out to schools tomorrow. And with everything that's going on in the world right now, the timing is excellent. 1,000 individual bottles of hand sanitizer. And they're a decent size.
Who are they going to?
They'll go to we're sending them to the school nurse, the principal, who will distribute to all the teachers in the classroom.
So it's going to teachers?
Oh, yes.
And then okay.
And as if one local resident donating wasn't enough, we had another friend, a local resident, Arthur Barrett, who owns his own distribution company, deliver them for us.
Did. And I got a chance to meet him. His name sounded so familiar. I felt like he had met him, but he came. Because I suggested we could go pick them up because it's very generous. Nope. Mr. Barrett
Parent of 3 boys.
is delivering them, and so he did and came in and brought them in, and that worked out just great. So many, many thanks to Michelle and to Arthur. Just
thank you.
Great community
Yes.
people.
Motion to accept?
I will make that
Borowski.
motion to accept the donation.
GAWRONSKI.
With
Most
gratitude.
gratitude.
Much
All
gratitude,
right.
yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good, because we can't ship them back easily.
No, they've already, I'm sure, opened the boxes, and they're going, if they're not already at the schools, they're going tomorrow.
And did you say you have a second?
Yes, turn that over
Yes,
to
to
Bill,
you.
because it's the baseball fields in the back.
Yes, I gave you a separate handout
Oh, yes.
today. Sorry for the delay, but actually I was trying to confirm the actual values, and I just stepped out while Amy was talking to verify an email that I was getting as well. Basically, the baseball and softball field youth groups have come forward. The new baseball field in the back, there is an area that actually is between the backstop of the softball and the outfield of the baseball area. It was designed and there had been a flagpole on the original site out front here that was actually a donation made in honor of Ernie Guy Sr., who was a big supporter of the baseball program. And so when we took down the field, and obviously that would have been in the middle of the new turf field, wasn't going to quite work. So it was saved and brought down to the DPW. We did have the site work. We put the footings in for it when we were doing the fields themselves, so it's just waiting for the flagpole to go up. And the both youth sports have decided that it would be a good step in completing the project out there to do a kind of a memorial around that area. It's a nice area to sit and be able to actually look in either direction to games that might be going on. So what they proposed is basically a donation that's coming from the youth baseball and softball in the amount of $5,000. And the confirmation I got was that the Foxborough Recreation also voted tonight to approve $1,500 to make it $6,500 in total. The project's going to be close to a $9,000 project, but also because all the labor is going to be sponsored by the group, and Bill Moto, who is got his own landscaping business, is also going to support the process by buying the goods at his pricing, as well as his equipment and labor to help and do the installation. So, really for $6,500, they're going to get about $9,000 worth of value. And if you look at the pictures that they've actually designed out, which is the last couple pagers, they're really showing what their intent is, and in the center of that would be the flagpole itself. That will be going up. So it's a nice be a nice addition to that backfield area, and they continue to support the process as the fields move forward as their new home. And I think we still have a few minor things left to do back there, but this is really kind of a nice gesture on their side.
So are these 3 separate donations that we need to accept?
Well, you're accepting the donation, I guess, yes, from all 3. So the one from the youth baseball and softball for the $5,000 towards this, they're actually going to fund it and do it just like we've done with the iGo Playground, as an example, from the PTO side. So they'll fund it, and they'll actually pay for the supplies and stuff. It won't run through us, but the end result is we have the $9,000 value increase in what they've done to the site. So
do you need 3 different motions?
You could probably just motion the approval of the process itself, because
Of the $9,000 donation to the
of the
park.
donation of the park setting around the flagpole.
In the amount of $9,000.
Well, it's actually in the amount of $6,500.
Oh, well, but I mean, $2,500
I'm wondering if
of
it's
free
not 3
labor.
separate, one accepting a donation from Foxborough Youth Baseball Softball, a second from
But we're not accepting, all we're accepting is the finished product.
Right, it's not, the money isn't actually coming through our hands.
Nothing's coming
Just-
through us.
Just the end
So you're
result.
accepting the fact that they're doing it on your property.
So
That's
we-
the difference.
And that they're doing
I do
it.
see
So
that.
could I motion that we accept the generosity of Foxborough Youth Baseball for installing the Ernie Guy Sr. flagpole again with the adornments that they choose to put on, with much gratitude from the school committee.
And I would just suggest Foxborough Baseball, Foxborough Recreation, and Moto Landscaping.
As amended by Bruce, that's my motion.
Good.
I'll second that one.
Good.
Did
Great.
you get all of that, Jan?
I got most of it done.
Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Did you say with gratitude?
Yes.
I did, yes.
Thank you.
It's just turned out to be such a beautiful complex back there between the Boy Scout project and the bird houses and the trench and the shrubbery and now this. It's really going to be a really beautiful area for those sports teams.
Agreed. As
Now-
the one
now
who
that
spends a
we're-
lot
now
of
that
time
we're
back
the-
there.
Now that we're there with the flagpole, Bill, if I could just ask, is that, because the flagpole on the common is so darn beautiful at night when it's illuminated. Is the flagpole going to be illuminated at the baseball park at all?
Yeah, we did wire for it. It's all
Yay,
set.
us. Okay, thank you.
The BICO quarterly update.
Yes. As you know, it's under the collaborative regulations in the state that our collaborative that we are a member of, BICO, provides a quarterly update to each member school committee. And this is the fall quarterly update. And when it comes to the one-page update, I guess only two things I'd probably highlight. And one is that we've discussed this before, but I want to highlight that their transportation network that they're running is running much more efficiently, and really appreciate the work that BICO has done on the transportation network. We're one of the 12 districts that participates in that. The last bullet is something new. As you know, under the new educator evaluation system, district-determined measures are part of the evaluation system, and every staff member, regardless of your role, must have a DDM, a district-determined measure, must have two associated with your evaluation. Correct me if anything I'm saying is wrong. So the Bike County Collaborative, since it's a special education collaborative, applied for a grant to develop DDMs in specialized areas. And so they did get that grant. So they're going to be working with specialized instructional personnel like OTs and PTs and speech and language therapists and guidance counselors who, when you're thinking about what measure of your achievement might apply to your role, I mean, the MCAS overview, you can immediately think what classroom teachers are going to be. But what is the assessments that are going to drive their evaluation when it comes to the assessment measure? So they're working on those specialized areas, and some of our people will be able to participate. And I think that's really a great idea when people in the region come together who have like roles, and we'll be working on that.
Right.
That's it.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. And enrollment.
The October 1st enrollment update is provided for you each year annually around this time of year. And, our enrollment dipped slightly. We're about where we were last year. We're usually somewhere between 2,700 and 2,800, and we still are. So, we tend to watch that trend. It does go a little up and a little down, and that's about where we are. So you can see our class sizes, coming along. We typically run around 200 for our class sizes. Our juniors and seniors are the biggest class that we have right now. And then as you go down in the grade levels, we stay around 200 for the most part. But when you get down, third grade and below, we've got a 200 class in grade 2. And grades 1 and 3 are currently running in the 180s, close to 190 for one of them, and the same with kindergarten. So we're not far off. Our class sizes are roughly 200, plus and minus about 20 students, which is historically where we've been.
Right. Thank you for those two reports. And I think we're on to other matters.
I just got some feedback from some parents that really liked the Columbus Day weekend days schedule, and I know I just wanted to put that out there so that when we're thinking about the schedule for next year, I don't know if other people have heard things, but just very positive about how the days were kind of set up there for
We've done that for a few years now, and having the Friday on the PD Day on the Friday before Columbus Day, it does give families a nice 4-day weekend.
Yes.
The only time we make an exception to that is during presidential election years. We take that day and we move it to Tuesday, November election.
Okay.
Because it's just a bigger turnout.
Right.
We need more parking. The Ahern can be a little crazier with in and outs. When it's a non-presidential election year, I think it works out quite well to have the PD day in October, and then it's not been a problem to accommodate our voters on election day, unless it's a presidential election year.
Didn't know
Right.
that, okay.
Does the staff
Thank you.
like it that way?
Yes,
It's-
yeah. I mean,
good.
it's a 3-day weekend for them. They're still at work, so
Doesn't change.
it doesn't really change their work. But I think we initially started doing it several years ago for families, if we're going to have one. If we're going to break up your year, you know, with professional development days where the kids aren't coming to school, then we might as well do it at a time that you might find useful
It's a nice fit.
as a family.
I hope they thanked you profusely.
Yes.
Bevy,
I just would like to congratulate the music department and all of our a cappella choirs who sang, and the string orchestra for an excellent, outstanding performance.
Unbelievable. One of the best things I've ever seen our town do. I sat with you.
that's awesome.
And on a related note, I thought the marching band on Friday night was
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
And their halftime show was rigorous. My husband described it as college stuff.
It is. yeah.
And the football team was very strong and had a wonderful showing. So it was a great time all the way around on Friday night. So congrats to the football team. They're doing quite well.
Our cheerleaders took first place in their competition on Sunday, so.
Didn't know.
Where?
Yesterday?
In Milford, yep. They had a hawk competition and they took
Excellent.
first.
So who cheers them on when they're doing something?
Their parents. I know, I was the mother,
You
and
know.
the mother of a cheerleader.
Okay.
Was cheerleader.
I have a friend
Yes.
who has a daughter on the team.
Anyone else?
Just need the
Motion to-
policy subcommittee ladies to come in and meet with me about a policy that we just want to, we chatted a little bit about it. Oh, I did anyway with one of them before the meeting. Just to clarify, there's a policy that we just would like to look at to make sure that it says with clarity what we think it says. So it's just a look at the language and make sure that it's clear to how we interpret it. So if you wouldn't mind touching base with Janet tomorrow and figure out the time that you both could come in, that'd be great. No hurry. Thank you.
Just clarification.
Yes.
You want me to make a motion to adjourn?
Great.
If everyone is.
If you're ready.
Okay,
Do it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
I.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.